Chapter 55. What kind of theme will it be? Huda asked tentatively. Will it be a modern person going back to the past? Or is there some kind of cheat code? Youngie shook his head. Neither. The theme will be very traditional. It will be a story about an ordinary regiment commander. Huda was a little disappointed, but he also felt relieved. From the previous assault of the soldiers, Yang Yi was more familiar with traditional writing methods. If Yang Yi were to write a web novel, he might not be able to write a story as good as this one. Plus, the reason why he valued Yang Yi so much was because Yang Yi could write good traditional military stories. There were a lot of military writers on the Chiyu Chinese network, and there was no lack of outstanding ones. But only Yang Yi could help the Chiyu Chinese network win over more netizens from the hardcore web. Huda smiled half seriously and half respectfully. I believe in Yang Yi's writing style. It will definitely be very interesting. Yang Yi smiled faintly and did not reply. After a while he brought 2 cups of coffee over. Mandeli, you guys are in luck. I just finished roasting a batch of raw beans the day before yesterday. It will taste the best if you drink it these few days. In this world, the coffee beans were not called Mandeli, but Yang Yi still liked the name. He searched for half a day at the supplier's place before he found 2 cans of Sumatra Mandeli. It seemed that the people in this world did not treat it as a treasure. Instead, Yang Yi bought it back at a low price. When he brought it back the day before yesterday, Yang Yi even danced with Shi as if he had found gold. In his previous life, before Blue Mountain Coffee was released, Mandeli was the best coffee in the world. But in this world, Blue Mountain Coffee was very famous, while Mandeli was a low-end product that few people cared about, because its beans were ugly. However, Yang Yi knew that for Sumatra Mandhila coffee beans, the uglier they looked, the better they tasted, the richer and smoother they were. However, Yang Yi felt that using mandolin to entertain these 2 was a bit wasteful. It's a little bitter. Xiangzi took a sip and said with a frown, Can I add some sugar? Yang Yi speechlessly handed over the sugar jar. Huda, who was beside him, was also looking at him eagerly. He said, Give it to me when you're done. I want some too. Yang Yi's heart was bleeding. He recalled the conversation just now. Do you usually drink coffee? Yes, we often drink it at work. That was why Yang Yi wanted to share Mandeli with them. Damn it, if he had known, he would have asked, Do you usually drink instant coffee? The answer was obvious. It was too late for regrets, so Yang Yi didn't take it to heart and continued to talk about the previous topic. He was too lazy to beat around the bush with Huda, so he asked directly, Xiangzi told me before that you want me to continue publishing my new book in Chiyu. So what are your conditions? Huda's heart skipped a beat. He knew that this was not going to be easy. Most of the authors in Chiyu were otakus. When they were negotiating with a website, they generally didn't know how to fight for better benefits for themselves. Of course, Chiyu had its own strength and stubbornness to say no to the authors who made the request. Only a few authors who had been famous for a long time were familiar with some of the unspoken rules in the online literature industry. They were also in contact with some of Chiyu's competitors. Only then could they have the ability to make Chiyu back down. However, Yang Yi was a new writer. Before Huda came, he felt that he had a high chance of persuading Yang Yi without much effort. However, the situation now seemed to be different. First of all, Yang Yi wasn't an otaku author. He didn't look young and he had a daughter. No matter how much Huda talked about ideals, he couldn't fool Yang Yi. Secondly, Yang Yi had his own business. Looking at this coffee shop, it was obvious that this man didn't lack money. So, if Huda's conditions were too low, he wouldn't care. Even if Yang Yi didn't write novels, he wouldn't starve to death. So, why did he have to publish his book on your website? However, Huda still didn't give up. He smiled and said, But Chiyu's user base is the widest, so we can give you the best publicity. I believe that when Xiangzi gave you the recommendation for Soldier's Assault, you should be able to feel it. However, Chiyu's readers don't seem to like my book very much. Yang Yi's face didn't show any change in emotion. Their views will change. Huda said awkwardly. After all, most of the readers like you. Many readers think that I should go to Iron-Blooded Web. I will have a better development there, Yang Yi said. Of course, Yang Yi wouldn't choose to go to Iron-Blooded Web. He didn't want to write military novels for the rest of his life. Military novels were just a stepping stone for him to cover himself. In his previous life, Yang Yi didn't like military novels either. Apart from these 2 books, the others didn't seem to meet Yang Yi's standards of being a hipster. Yang Yi planned to change his career after writing the next book, Drawing Sword. Therefore, Chiue was a very comprehensive platform that was more suitable for his development. Huda had no choice but to negotiate with Yang Yi. The two started talking about the sales share of the work. Changzi, who wasn't good at talking, didn't have a chance to interject. Yang Yi wanted to increase the sales share, but it was very difficult. Starting from the 55% that Huda gave, almost every percentage had to be haggled over. It's really impossible to increase it to 70%. Our website still has to pay the Copyright Association 10% of the profits. Huda said with a huff. You also have to be given a half-year bonus and a year-end bonus. You can't let the website go hungry, right? Online literature was a new industry, and the difficulty of copyright protection was much greater. Therefore, the commission charged by the Copyright Association would also be relatively higher. In the end, Yang Yi accepted Huda's proposal of 60% of the sales share and 70% of the rewards. The reward amount would not be taken by the Copyright Association. However, Huda was also forced to accept one of Yang Yi's conditions. All of my works, including Soldier Assault, and all future works, including physical publications, film and television copyrights, I have a veto right. Also, the website's share of the copyrights for these non-electronic publications will be reduced to 5%. You can provide opinions or channels, but the decision is in my hands. Yang Yi said. This must be written in the contract. Huda had spent a lot of energy in the previous negotiations with Yang Yi. Now that he thought about it, he couldn't see any loopholes. After all, there were very few film and television adaptations of online novels. Otherwise, their previous share would not have been so low. Now, Yang Yi's proposal of 5% was not unacceptable. In terms of physical publishing, this was a big deal. Many physical versions of online novels sold very well. However, Yang Yi only had a few books, so Huda felt that it would not hurt to have a smaller share. Moreover, as long as the website still had the right to share the profits, it didn't matter which publishing house published it. Moreover, Huda's main purpose for coming this time was to keep Yang Yi for reading. He wanted to use Yang Yi's works to compete with Iron-Blooded Web for readers. Since these goals could be met, Huda felt that he could compromise on these seemingly insignificant copyright issues. Then I wish us a happy cooperation. Seeing Yang Yi sign the modified electronic contract, Huda smiled and extended his right hand to Yang Yi. Yang Yi narrowed his eyes and held Huda's hand tightly. He said calmly, "Happy cooperation." In fact, Yang Yi was overjoyed. He felt that these 2 cups of Mandelin were worth it. Not at all. Chapter 56. Okay, Yang Yi, why didn't I realize that you were so rich before? Murphy finally came back, but what followed was her questioning and interrogation. Just as Yang Yi expected, she soon found out about Yang Yi's petty bourgeois lifestyle. Not only did he decorate the coffee shop with expensive furniture and equipment, but he also bought many branded clothes for Shi, which filled a large wardrobe. Previously, Murphy had asked Yang Yi to take a picture, but because the phone's resolution in this world was still very low, Murphy couldn't see it clearly. She didn't know that Yang Yi had bought very expensive clothes for Shi. Regarding this, Murphy was still suspicious, but when she saw Yang Yi's expensive tyrant, Murphy's suspicion escalated to worry. Tell me honestly, did you do something bad? Murphy bit her lower lip and endured until they went upstairs. She was watching TV in the living room. Then she pulled Yang Yi into the kitchen and almost blocked him against the wall. What bad things? Yang Yi pretended to be confused. Murphy was so anxious that her eyes turned red. "You're still lying to me. If you didn't do anything bad, where did you get so much money? You bought clothes and a car." Young Yi was stunned. Murphy's outburst of emotions was a little sudden, and it made him a little flustered, especially when he saw her red eyes. Young Yi felt that he had really done something wrong, and felt inexplicably ashamed. Seeing that Young Yi's eyes were evasive and he didn't speak, Murphy anxiously stomped her feet and said, "If you're short of money, tell me you're Shishi's papa. How can I not help you? Moreover, I have a lot of money too. Why do I have to do those bad things?" Looking at Murphy's appearance, Young Yi also felt very uncomfortable. He didn't know why, but he suddenly thought of the 2 million that he had taken back when he was reborn. Back then, he felt that it was only natural. But now, facing Murphy's sincere eyes, Young Yi felt that this was the most shameful thing he had ever done. He did not dare to speak bluntly to Murphy. "What are you thinking? What other bad things can I do?" Young Yi forced a smile and continued to act according to the script he had thought of. "You tell me. Where did you get so much money? Don't tell me you're selling drugs." First, Murphy was as tough as before. Then, her voice gradually softened. "Don't hide it from me, okay? Even if you did something bad, we can think of a way to solve it together. I still have a lot of money. Maybe I can help you get out of this." This idiot. Young Yi was also a person of flesh and blood. He was touched by Murphy's words. However, he was not a person who liked to show his emotions. The more unfamiliar this feeling was, the more he wanted to act normal. "Murphy, calm down." Young Yi grabbed Murphy's shoulder. 1.7 meters. Murphy looked tall, but her body was very thin. She had the delicate body of a southern woman. Murphy was not satisfied. Just like she wanted Young Yi to give her an answer. "Okay, I'll tell you. I do have other sources of income, but they are all serious things." Young Yi brought Murphy to his study. He turned on the computer and showed his currently serialized novel to Murphy. "I published a book online. I didn't expect it to be so popular." Young Yi deliberately obscured the time of publication. Murphy also did not think of this. She sat down doubtfully and scrolled the mouse to read the introduction of the book. Seeing that it was a military novel, Murphy was slightly relieved. She did not read the main text, but she still believed that Young Yi could write such a novel. After all, this guy did have experience in the army. "You wrote a book and earned so much money. You even bought a car." Murphy frowned. She was puzzled. Young Yi smiled faintly and said, "Yes, I should be able to earn millions this month." It was already the 3rd of June. According to the statistics released by the system yesterday, Young Yi would receive 1,174,214 yuan and 8 cents from the sales and rewards in May. According to the new ratio, Young Yi would receive a total of 1,174,214 yuan and 8 cents. Of course, rewards still accounted for a high percentage. Online sales could not show the power of soldiers' assault for the time being. Murphy looked at Young Yi strangely and said with jealousy, "Writing a book can earn so much money. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have rejected someone who asked me to write an autobiography a few years ago. I worked so hard doing all the jobs, but I only earned a few yuan a month." Of course, Mo Fei was also exaggerating. After all, she was a superstar who was a diva 4 years ago. Even if her influence was not as great as before, her appearance fee for a commercial performance was not something that ordinary second-tier stars could compare to. These 2 weeks of commercial performance and promotion schedule, her income could be compared to Young Yi's. If she could return to the top after the release of her new album, then the income from a concert would probably be 2 to 3 million. The income from selling songs would definitely be higher. Andy's concert was the most profitable, with a box office of more than 10 million. Andy's 3 CDs earned him more than 4 million per show. Obviously, Mo Fei's jealousy was just an act. The faint smile on the corner of her mouth exposed her joy. Now she could confirm that Young Yi did not do anything illegal for personal gain. As for Young Yi earning so much from writing books, Murphy was happy for Young Yi. Are you staying for dinner tonight? Yang Yi looked at Mo Fei, who was reading the novel he wrote with great interest while crossing her long legs in black stockings. The latter had no intention of moving, so he could only pour her a glass of water and ask helplessly. Murphy glanced at the water that Yang Yi handed over and drank half a glass. Her red lips left a lipstick mark on the glass. Murphy paused and glanced at Yang Yi, but she did not say the words in her heart. No, Sister Ling said that she would treat me to dinner tonight. She must also come. Isn't it time to tell others about Yang Yi? Murphy was also a little confused. What was her relationship with Yang Yi? Forget it, I won't think about it. Murphy took the reluctant Shishi back, but she did not pack up Shishi's clothes, toys, and daily necessities. With the release date of the new album approaching, she was getting busier and busier. She might take Shishi back to stay for a few days and then hand her over to Yang Yi. You even bought a car. Next time you have to come over to my place to pick up Shishi. Before Mo Fei left, she asked Yang Yi to drive Tyrant to take her and Cece around the dam of the canal. She pursed her lips and said with some emotion, Then let's forget about today. I'll go straight to the hotel, and you'll have to send me back in the future. Yang Yi focused on driving and said calmly, It's not a big deal. You can find me with a call. Chapter 57. Today was a big day for all the fans of Soldier's Assault. Chapter 23 had already been released, and the website had also announced that the next chapter would be the finale. At the end of Chapter 22, Yuan Lang decided to give Su San Duo, who wanted to be reinstated, a month of vacation. When he let him go out for a walk, the fans who had been following the book closely realized that the book was coming to an end soon. But no one wanted it to end. They hoped that they could persevere and persevere. Those who really liked the story couldn't bear to part with Su San Duo and the military camp. But the website's promotion made them realize that the farewell was coming. At 8 o'clock at night, whether it was the fans who had already gone home for dinner or the hardworking people like Mu Yuqing who were still working overtime, they all picked up their phones or opened the website to refresh the latest chapter. Mu Yuqing's internet speed was good, so he was the first to see the latest chapter on his phone. Like before, there was no chapter name, but he wasn't in a hurry to continue reading. He thought about the situation when he first read the book. That should be a war, right? Until now, there was no sign of the war. How would the ending transition there? Also, what happened to Su San Duo who fell from the bridge? What kind of arrangement would the author make for him? Was he really going to be demobilized? Mu Yuqing thought about Wu Liuyi who was injured and crippled. That man who was always confident and arrogant didn't want to be a burden to Su San Duo and the military. In the end, he chose to be demobilized. Was Su San Duo going to end up like him? Maybe using the word end up was a bit demeaning, but for a man who wanted to make a name for himself in the military, leaving the military was the biggest torture for him. Mu Yuqing collected his thoughts and continued reading. This chapter was very long. Su San Duo was first dragged to Gao Cheng by his old comrades and met Qing Kai, the arrogant and cold fellow from the same hometown. It seemed that the plot was very simple, but suddenly the situation changed. Su Sanduo's elder brother found the military and appeared next to Yuan Lang. Yuan Lang started looking for Su San Duo everywhere until he got in touch with him. Mu Yuqing was worried. Something must have happened. Sure enough, Mu Yuqing saw that something big had happened. Su Sanduo's father had opened a small mine with someone else, but the explosives he had bought in private exploded. His father had been thrown into jail, and now the two injured people were chasing after him every day. Even his eldest brother, Su Yile, had escaped. This scene was very heart-wrenching, but what moved Mu Yuqing was that later, when Captain Yuan Lang received a call from Su San Duo to borrow money, he didn't hesitate and only said, "How much do you need?" Su Sanduo's comrades in the army pooled together 200,000 yuan in one go. This debt would probably take a long time for Su San Duo to repay. But when Su San Duo said that he would definitely return the money, Yuan Lang only said, "Do as you wish." When Mu Yuqing saw this, he had mixed feelings. He was touched, but more than that, he was deeply moved. He was moved by the simplicity of the relationship between the soldiers and their reckless support for their comrades. In real life, it would be hard to find such an example, right? After dealing with personal matters, Su Sanduo returned to the team. As for Chiang Kai, he also appeared in the selection list for the Special Forces. His performance as a sniper was amazing. He's here. Mu Yuqing's eyes lit up. Chiang Kai appeared in the first chapter, so he should be in the Special Forces. Sure enough, after some pestering from Su Sanduo, Yuan Lang put aside his prejudice and added Chiang Kai to the silent team. Yuan Lang, Wu Jia, Su Sanduo, Chiang Kai. But Mu Yuqing didn't expect the author to change the scene so quickly, skipping the run-in and arriving at the final battlefield. The scene from the first chapter played out once again. So it was just a drill. Mu Yuqing saw Su Sanduo's final struggle before he fell, but he couldn't help but curse. This idiot, why didn't he call for help? This was just a drill. The scene of Su Sanduo falling was seen by Chiang Kai through the scope, and Captain Yuan Lang also saw it. Wu Jia wasn't able to contact Su Sanduo, and everyone's heart sank. Mu Yuqing's heart also sank. The words that Yuan Lang said to Chiang Kai made Mu Yuqing feel scared. He felt that the captain that once touched him was too cold. How could he? It was just a drill. Why didn't he go help his comrades? Was he just going to watch him die? But Mu Yuqing knew that Yuan Lang did well, and what he said was right. Soldiers, whether it was a drill or not, had to carry out their mission well, even if their comrades were sacrificed. Don't give up, don't give up. But Su Sanduo gave up on calling for help for the sake of the mission. And Yuan Lang was the same. For the sake of the mission, he couldn't risk being exposed to save Su Sanduo. Luckily, Mu Yuqing was relieved to see that they managed to contact the rescue team and let the enemy rescue Su Sanduo, while they continued to carry out the mission. But Mu Yuqing's heart was in his throat again. This was because he saw Su Sanduo stand up while dragging his broken leg. He struggled to avoid the enemy's rescue vehicle, and like an idiot, he forced himself to reposition his ankle and dragged his broken leg behind the enemy's back. He even hijacked the old instructor He Hongtao's jeep. Mu Yuqing saw this scene and laughed until tears appeared in his eyes. This idiot, why is he still so brave? The mission that followed was as expected. With the hard work of Su Sanduo, Chiang Kai, Wu Jia, and Yuan Lang, they successfully completed it, even though the price they paid was quite high. It's about to end. Mu Yuqing read to the end and felt sad. Yuan Lang. Yes, the road ahead is long, even longer than Su Sanduo's. You will be more lost than Su Sanduo, so. He patted Su Sanduo lightly, hoping that this would lessen his pain. I have to ask you first. If this is your path, would you be willing to join Old A? Su Sanduo trembled in pain, and Chiang Kai hugged his trembling friend tightly, crying because this sentence was too long, but it wasn't the answer. End. This ending is not bad. Chiang Kai joined Old A, and Su Sanduo didn't die. He will definitely become stronger after he recovers. Yes, I will definitely return the money to the captain and the others. Although it was a good ending, Mu Yuqing didn't know why, but he couldn't wipe away the tears in his eyes. He couldn't wait to open the book review and comment section, but he was still too slow. He saw that a large number of readers had already said what he wanted to say. Bastard. How can it end so quickly? I think the author can still write a few 100,000 more words. Olda can still continue with the mission. I still want to read their story. It's over. I can't believe it. No, how am I going to live without Su Sanduo in the future? Su Sanduo, that idiot, Old A, and the others are all idiots. I cried when I read it. Damn, I'm a soldier. When I saw this part of the military exercise, I cried my eyes out. I remembered that when I was in the army, I also had a brother who sprained his leg during the exercise. He didn't make a sound and persevered until the end. In the end, he was completely exhausted. I beg the author to release a new book. After reading Soldier's Assault, all the other military novels are boring. May I ask weakly, does anyone know where to buy the physical version? I want to buy a copy for my collection. Chapter 58. Course, if there were fans, there would be haters. Other than the true fans who expected better from Yang Yi, there were also haters who started to scold Yang Yi. The shortest web novel in history. There's no need to read it. It's finished with more than 400,000 words. It's definitely going to be unfinished. What the hell is he writing? He didn't even understand the ending. The author is short and fast. It's useless. Everyone can go to sleep now. What kind of book is this that the website is promoting so hard? No one knew where these haters came from. Maybe there were people who really didn't like this type of book. Or maybe there were cynical people who wanted to cause trouble. Or maybe there was an author who thought that Yang Yi was hurting his interests and hired a water army. These were all unknown. However, their choice to appear at this time was a big mistake. The news that Yang Yi was going to finish the novel had already spread on all the major forums. Many fans who followed the book just happened to gather here. Moreover, there was a considerable number of energetic retired soldiers who were Yang Yi's loyal fans. How could they hold back when they saw these posts? Suddenly, the haters were scolded badly. Other than a few strong water army, the other users shrank back and trembled. They didn't dare to touch this bad luck again. The heat dissipated a little. 1 hour, 2 hours, 1 or 2 days later, the real reviews came. First, look at Mu Yuqing's review. This guy used the small keypad on his phone to type out each word. It took him more than an hour. Yang Dada's novel is the best I've read in recent years. Let's not talk about his portrayal of military life, the description of the special forces, or the soldier's spirit of not giving up. I just want to sigh at Yang Dada's portrayal of each character. It's really godly. Su Sanduo is the main character. His character is very special. His performance along the way makes people want to laugh and cry. But in fact, this novel isn't just about Su Sanduo. There's also Gao Cheng, Shi Jin, Cheng Kai, Wu Lu Yi, Yuan Lang, and so on. My personal favorite character is squad leader Shi Jin. Because he's loyal and righteous, because he made a promise to Su Sanduo. He put in a lot of effort. For the sake of his soldiers. He had exhausted all his efforts. Like a naggy woman. He had taught them step by step and earnestly advised them. The scene that left the deepest impression was when Shi Jin retired from the army. He had guarded the capital for 10 years, but had never been to the capital even once. But when he and Gao Cheng were walking on the streets of Beijing, he cried. His tears of helplessness and disappointment were heart-wrenching. Other than Shi Jin, there are other outstanding characters. From his post, it could be seen that Mu Yuqing had really read this novel very carefully. The character of every supporting character seemed to be imprinted in his mind, and every small incident was easily grasped by him. After reading the book, it always made one's heart surge with emotion and want to spit it out. In addition to this long post by Mu Yuqing, there were many other posts with insightful content in the book review section, such as this comment from a veteran of the Special Forces. This is the most realistic military novel. The author is definitely from the Special Forces. There are many details of special operations in this novel that most people don't know. Due to the confidentiality regulations, I won't exchange pleasantries with the author. But I have been a soldier for 12 years, and 5 of those years were in the Special Forces. I can see that many details in this novel are consistent with reality. It doesn't give me a sense of absurdity like other novels that are full of mistakes. For example, the plot where Old A encircles and suppresses the drug traffickers. You can go back and read it. The description is very long, but the battle doesn't drag on for long. In short, it's just a few sentences. First, it's a sneak attack using bombs to break the tough bones of the enemy. Then, it's covered with firepower, and snipers observe from afar to fill in the gaps. Half an hour to end the battle, then quickly clean up the battlefield and evacuate within 15 minutes. The author's description is completely in line with the requirements of special operations. Special operations are to fight as soon as they arrive, and they must kill the leader of the enemy. After the battle, they must leave as soon as possible. I've read a novel before where a team of special forces went on a mission. After they took down the target, they still chatted leisurely, smoked, and some even took time to take a 2-hour nap. It really poisoned me. Come on, this is the enemy's territory. If you don't leave after you're done, are you waiting for others to surround you? Luckily, Soldier's Assault doesn't have such a stupid plot. I give full marks to the author. The person who posted this didn't know that the original version of Soldier's Assault actually had a lot of illogical places. For example, in this plot, the original author wrote that the battle lasted for an entire night, but in the end, there were still survivors in the village. Not only that, but in the later part of the search and capture segment, the TV showed everyone squeezing into a group to search, which made a lot of people who really knew the ropes complain. Yang Yi hesitated for a long time during the process of moving the book, but still decided to change some of the illogical places based on some of the memories of his predecessor. Of course, Yang Yi would not see this post, but there were a lot of popular posts and discussion posts in the book review section. Those who were eager to share the novel after reading it found a place to go. Some people even joked, the book review is better than the original series. Taking advantage of the large number of fans gathered, Chi-Yu also took the opportunity to advertise Yang Yi's new book on various pages. Announcement. In 7 days, Yang Yi, the author of Soldier's Assault, will return with a new book. The God of Resistance, Drawing Sword, will be an immortal monument. At that moment, the book review section became lively again. The new book will be released in 7 days. I'm looking forward to it even though I haven't read it yet. The new book is called Drawing Sword. It sounds so hot-blooded, but is this a war with cold weapons? Isn't it the God of Resistance? This should be the story of the last century's counterattack against the Japanese invaders. It's definitely not a cold weapon, but I wonder what drawing sword means. No matter what, set the alarm. It's going to be released next week. I'm so excited. I want to read it as soon as possible. I thought that after reading Soldiers, I'd be stuck in a book drought for a long time. Haha, I didn't expect the author to be so awesome. Why not release it today? I can't wait. I hope Yang Yi doesn't learn from other coquettish scumbags and keeps his style. As long as it's written at the level of Soldier's Assault, I'll definitely support it. This was obviously a fan from the iron-blooded web. Mu Yuqing only saw the news when he went to work the next day. He was so excited that he almost threw his phone into the subway tracks. Yang Yi's character is still guaranteed. The update rate is fast and the quality of the novel is high. I believe Drawing Sword will be a good novel too. I'll give you Piao Hong first. I'm looking forward to it. After Mu Yuqing tipped, his excitement had not subsided. He made up his mind that when the author's new book was released, not only would he give a bigger red packet, but he would also invite his friends to read it. Although he was not the richest fan, he, Mu Yuchen, was definitely going to be the #1 hardcore fan. Chapter 59. The internet was in an uproar, but in reality, Yang Yi was calm and at ease. He didn't even look at the book review section. Since the last time he saw some reviews that slandered him, Yang Yi felt that there was no need to patronize them anymore. He wrote his own books and recommended his favorite works to the world. Those who liked them could stay, and those who didn't, what else could they ask for? The coffee shop was still open as usual. The signboard was hung up at 10 a.m. sharp. If there weren't any customers, Yang Yi would read a book and listen to music. No, there were still a few customers today. Ring, ring, ring. The wind chime at the door broke the silence of the shop. Even though Yang Yi was still playing music, this calm atmosphere could still be called tranquility. Yang Yi put away the book in his hand and stood up from the bar counter. The customers were 4 girls in their prime. They were beaming with joy as they held hands and talked in pairs. It looked a bit like the sisters in the dormitory had come out to play together. When they saw Young E standing behind the bar counter, they were actually a bit scared. After all, Young E didn't like to take the initiative to greet customers. He even had a faint smile on his face. Fortunately, a girl with short hair was braver. She took the initiative to ask, "Boss, what kind of coffee do you have here? Can you show me the menu?" Young E was actually having a headache over this problem. Almost every customer came to him to ask for the menu, but Young E didn't have the mood to print a stack of menus. Moreover, the coffee he sold wasn't the Starbucks-style coffee. What he sold today depended on the coffee beans in his jar. "It's all written here." Young E pointed at the whiteboard behind him. On it, he wrote today's menu with a marker. Mocha, 30 renminbi a cup. Robusta, 40 renminbi a cup. Santos, 50 renminbi a cup. Before he finished reading, the girls exclaimed in unison, "So expensive!" Young E was a bit speechless, but he still patiently explained, "My coffee is all ground coffee beans. It's all handmade. It's normal for it to be expensive." Young E felt that his price was too low. Better coffee shops sold instant coffee for dozens of yuan. He didn't expect this shop to make money, so he didn't raise the price by much. "It's so expensive. Why don't we just forget about it? There's a coffee shop at the East Gate. It's only about 20 yuan a cup." A girl whispered. Young E was both angry and amused. He shut his mouth. That kind of coffee shop must have instant coffee, the kind that has been mixed with water. How could it be compared to his? Forget it. If she didn't want to drink, Young E wouldn't force her. His street corner was selling emotions. Those who didn't know how to taste it probably wouldn't be able to feel it. However, the girl with the short hair said, "Forget it. We've been to that shop so many times. We said that we're here to experience life. Let's just give it a try." Well, in the end they stayed. Other than the girl with ear-length hair, there was also a girl who seemed to be from a good family. She curiously ordered Santos and Robusta, while the other two girls ordered the cheapest mocha. After they finished ordering, they sat by the window near the flower bed and started chatting again. Because Young E practiced internal energy, he had sharp eyes and ears. He could hear their conversation from afar. Originally, Young E didn't want to eavesdrop. However, he inadvertently heard that they were talking about him. Young E perked up his ears and listened. "Uncle store manager looks quite handsome." "Who said so? Even I think he's fierce." "I also think he's fierce. Looking at his eyes, I feel like he's going to eat someone." "Are you exaggerating?" "I think Uncle store manager just doesn't like to talk." "You guys, you must think that he didn't give you a discount because you're the belle of the wind department. That's why you're making malicious guesses." "How could that be? Littleine, tell us. Is this Uncle store manager's eyes especially cold?" These youthful girls. Young E helplessly shook his head. He collected his thoughts and focused on making coffee. However, he was also a little apprehensive. Could it be that he still hadn't integrated into the current environment? Were his eyes still filled with killing intent? This wasn't good. He would be isolated by society. Young E suddenly remembered that when Hu De and Chong Zi came over, they were wearing glasses. He suddenly had an idea. 2 cups of mocha, a cup of Santos, and a cup of Robusta. Young E still spent some effort to make the coffee. Then, he placed the sugar cubes and powdered canisters that he had bought a few days ago and brought them over. Coincidentally, they were discussing the music that was playing in Young E's shop. "Please enjoy." Young E liked to reduce his presence. Therefore, after serving the coffee, he left quietly. However, his ears still heard the girls' discussion. "I used to be a fan of Murphy. I thought that her song Like Strangers was super good. It was a must-listen at the KTV, okay? But I don't know why she disappeared for a few years. It hurt me so much. I heard that she didn't listen to the management company's arrangement and was banned. Who knows? Anyway, she hasn't sung for a few years. Now I heard that she's making a comeback. Does she think that the entertainment industry is still the same as before? She comes and goes as she pleases. Didn't Lee Man Man say it in an interview some time ago? A girl covered her mouth and laughed. She said, "Have you considered my feelings when you call her the Queen of Songs? Lee Man Man is really straightforward and cute." Lee Man Man was only a third or fourth tier singer at that time. Now Lee Man Man's influence is no less than Murphy's. She is qualified to say that. But I think Lee Man Man's singing is not as good as Murphy's. Although it's not bad, I think she was chosen as the Queen of Songs purely because she is popular, beautiful, and often sensationalizes in front of the media. Murphy is not like that. Her success is achieved step by step. She is very steady. This argument was immediately refuted. Judge, don't be so naive. Murphy's success was due to many people behind her. Haven't you heard of it? Her mother used to be a singer. She must have a lot of resources in her hands. She grew up with a golden spoon in her mouth. You still say that she relied on her own efforts. Murphy is not doing well now. I read the report that she has started to take commercial performances now, but she only sings a few old songs. I have also heard the new music sources posted on the internet. The songs are very ordinary and won't be popular. Think so too. Didn't someone say that many of her comeback albums are old songs? I don't want such an album. Whoever wants to buy it can buy it. Murphy also had a scandal before. Teacher Lu Shifeng of Shanghai Music Academy. We all played his song Daughters of the River. Teacher Lu also scolded Murphy, saying that she didn't respect her teacher and was ungrateful. I didn't expect her to be such a person. The girl with short hair called Judge shouted. Forget it. It seems that I won't be her fan in the future. Yang Yi was behind the bar with his back facing her, but his expression was a little serious. It seemed that Murphy's situation was not very good. Chapter 60. Yang Yi didn't know that while he was worried about Murphy, Murphy was also worried about her gains and losses. On the first day Murphy brought Shishi home, because she was eating and talking with Sister Ling. Murphy didn't get home until the middle of the night. Naturally, she forgot to call Yang Yi. But when Murphy thought about it the next day, she was annoyed. She didn't call Yang Yi, so he didn't want to call her. She brought her daughter home, so why didn't he care if she got home or if there were any other problems? So, Murphy didn't contact Yang Yi the next day. In the end, Yang Yi really ignored her. Murphy was really sad. In a fit of anger, she directly deleted Yang Yi's number from her phone's contact list. Actually, this didn't help. She didn't need to memorize Yang Yi's number because she bought Yang Yi's phone and SIM card. She just happened to buy 2 consecutive numbers, one for Yang Yi and one for her. Because the release of the new album was imminent, Murphy didn't have much time to spend on love. She simply put it aside and put all her energy on work. Until this day, Mo Fei stole half a day of leisure, so she took her daughter to eat Western food. She went to a French restaurant that had a rating of 3 stars on the International Food Association. The International Food Association's evaluation has always been known for being objective and harsh. Just like the Michelin in Yang Yi's previous life, their food critics were all secretive and no one was aware of their arrival. Moreover, ordinary restaurants would not be able to enter their rating list at all. As for those that were on the list, no matter if it was a 1-star or the highest 5-star restaurant, they would all be proud of it. At the same time, they would also receive more attention and pursuit from the upper class. In the city of Zhongqing, a restaurant with a rating of 3 stars was already considered to be at the top level. Of course, their service was excellent. Murphy did not have to worry about paparazzi finding out that she was eating at this restaurant with her daughter. When they were eating Western food, Murphy showed her good upbringing. She used the knife and fork elegantly and helped Shishi cut the veal. Of course, Shishi preferred the macarons in this restaurant, so Murphy asked the waiter to serve the dessert in advance. However, Shishi only took 2 bites before she put down her fork. "Why do you look like you don't have any appetite today?" Murphy asked in surprise. "It's not as good as Papa's." Shishi pouted and said unhappily, "Shishi misses Papa. It can't be. Could it be that your Papa can cook Western food?" Murphy asked in amusement. Who said that? She was not convinced. Papa is amazing. It's delicious. Murphy was surprised. She asked, what kind of Western food can he cook? Tell Mama. A lot, such as this and this. Papa has cooked them before. It's delicious. She could not name the name. But when Murphy saw that she was referring to the French onion soup and rosemary roasted lamb chop in front of her, Murphy did not believe it. Although Murphy did not know how to cook these two dishes, the process was obviously very troublesome. It was completely different from cooking Chinese food. Murphy was willing to believe that a stubborn guy like Yang Yi could cook Chinese food. But would he learn Western food? Or even such a complicated French food? Murphy felt that the possibility was zero. But would he learn it for me? Murphy suddenly had an idea that shocked herself. How could it be? What if it was true? It couldn't be, right? I've never seen him do that before. But if it wasn't for me, why would he learn Western food? Who else likes Western food, and is worth it for him to change? Murphy was flustered by her own wild thoughts. It was only when the waiter came to serve the dishes that she hurriedly sorted out her thoughts. You've been living in Papa's house for 2 weeks. Is there anything that makes you happy? Please share it with Mama. Mofei changed the topic. Cece's interest was piqued again. She said happily, yes. Papa took Shishi to see the flowers. And took a lot of photos. Murphy nodded. Yang Yi had sent her 2 selected photos. The sea of flowers behind she was very beautiful. It was so beautiful that she was mesmerized. She always felt that it was not enough to just look at the photos. In fact, she was a little jealous. Yang Yi did not take her there. He always took his daughter to play here and there. He never even thought of inviting her. Papa tied Shishi's hair and bought a lot of beautiful clothes. Shishi pouted and said, but Mom didn't bring them back for Shishi. Those clothes are with your papa. Mom will go on a business trip in a few days. You can still wear them when you live with Papa. Murphy said, you're still talking about hair. If Mom didn't ask your papa to learn how to tie hair, he wouldn't even know how to do it. What kind of hair did he tie for you before? It's so ugly. She thought of something. She giggled, and her bright eyes turned into 2 crescent moons. Papa, he couldn't learn it. It was Brother Kai's mom who taught him, and then Papa learned it. Brother Kai's mom. Murphy's expression stiffened. She narrowed her eyes and asked, who is she? A woman who appeared around Yang Yi. Murphy became vigilant. Brother Kai's mom. She said in confusion. Papa said she sells flowers. Mo Fei's face suddenly became cold, but the voice she used to talk to her daughter did not become cold. Really? How did your papa know her? One day, it was raining heavily. She had a good memory. She gestured with her small hands and said, well, it was raining and then Papa and I were drawing downstairs. I drew a very beautiful elephant. Papa also said that it was good. Murphy held back and did not urge her again. Later, Brother Kai and his mom wanted to take shelter from the rain, but Brother Kai's mom's feet were dirty, so Papa asked her to go upstairs to wash her feet. Murphy's hand that was holding the fork tightened. She did not pay attention. She digressed a bit. Papa asked me to take a toy to play with Brother Kai, but Brother Kai ignored me at first. He was so fierce. Well, she even led her daughter away. Later, Brother Kai's mom's clothes were wet, so Papa gave her a piece of clothes to wear. She said innocently, but Mom, don't worry. The next day, Brother Kai's mom returned the clothes. Clothes were wet. She even gave someone else clothes to wear. She even returned it the next day. Mo Fei felt that her heart had become cold. She just wanted to sneer. So that was the case. No wonder she was indifferent, no wonder she did not care at all. Mom, what's wrong? Shi's voice seemed to drag Murphy back from the clouds. Murphy forced a smile and said, it's nothing, Mom, it's nothing. However, she was in a terrible mood. The tears in her eyes were rolling and could not be stopped. Murphy covered it up and took a big gulp of white wine. With the strength of the wine, she suppressed her rolling emotions. Ishi. Mo Fei stretched out her hand on the table and held the little girl's little hand in her palm. She smiled a little firmly and said, "In the future, no matter what, we won't be separated, okay?" Yes, Papa. She said innocently. Murphy could only chuckle. Chapter 61. It had to be said that habit was a terrifying force. Young-yi was no exception. After talking to Murphy on the phone for more than a week, Young-yi was used to picking up the phone at night and listening to her. However, after she came back, the things he had to do every night came to an abrupt end. When Young-yi typed on the keyboard every night, the phone on the side did not budge. Is this what disappointment feels like? Young-yi thought silently. Why do I have such emotions too? In fact, he was just an ordinary person. However, unlike Murphy's wild imagination, Young-yi found that he could not control the emotions that were growing wildly like grass. He chose to ignore it and stop thinking about it. He threw it aside and put his energy into the matter at hand. He wanted to adapt drawing sword. However, the problem was that Young-yi counted on his fingers and waited for the new weekend, but she still did not arrive. Could it be that Murphy had not gone to promote it yet? Was she not going to release a new album soon? Young-yi waited until his new book was released. He did not pay much attention to the new book situation. When Murphy's new album was released the next day, he finally received a call from Shishi. "Papa, sob, you don't want Shishi anymore." After the little girl picked up the phone, she complained with a sobbing tone. "Huh? What? When did Papa say that he doesn't want Shishi?" Young-yi was confused. Young-yi struggled for a long time and learned the details from the aggrieved Shishi. Murphy had already gone to Shanghai's TV station to hit the charts. During the month of the release of her new album, she had to broadcast music programs on Shanghai, Beijing, and other major TV stations. Although the chart could not determine the sales of her album, it could increase her popularity to a certain extent. If the results were good, naturally more people would buy it. However, Murphy did not send Shishi to Young-yi. Young-yi did not know that Murphy was angry with him. Murphy wondered why she should send Shishi there. Did she want Shishi to watch Young-yi and his lover being lovey-dovey? Of course, the reason Murphy made up for Shishi was, "Your papa is too busy. We can't disturb his work now. Shishi misses Papa so much. After Papa finishes his work, he will play with Shishi, okay?" The little girl sobbed and said, "Mom is not at home. Shishi is afraid at night." Murphy had been on a business trip for a few days. Shishi could not help but sneak into the living room and call her father's cell phone today. The little girl did not dare to disturb her father before. Young-yi was actually full of anger. He did not know why Murphy would deceive Shishi like this. He also did not understand why Murphy would rather leave Shishi at home than send Shishi to him. When was he busy with work? The most idle person in the world now was Young-yi, okay? Young-yi frowned and thought of Murphy's sudden disconnection. He could not help but think, what does she want to do? What kind of person does she think I am? That I can come and go as she pleases. Some of the inappropriate perceptions of his predecessor now emerged and began to affect his judgment. Did Murphy still think of him as a substitute doll when her daughter needed her father's company? In any case, Young-yi was very angry. Why didn't she let him take care of her daughter? Obviously, even if Young-yi had no experience, he would take care of her better than Murphy, who was busy all day and did not have time to accompany her daughter. "Papa, I want you to tell me a story," she said with grievance. "Shishi, don't be afraid. Dad will come to pick you up." Young-yi suppressed the anger in his heart and comforted the little girl. "Go back to sleep and close your eyes. When you wake up tomorrow, you will be able to see Dad." "Really?" she asked with some surprise. "It's true," Young-yi said resolutely. "Did the 7 dwarfs send Shishi to Papa?" She was still reluctant to put down the phone. She was full of joy and asked with fantasy. Yang Yi said softly. After putting down the phone, Yang Yi was silent for a while. He glanced at Murphy's phone number in the call log, but after thinking about it, he still did not call her. Ask for help. Yang Yi could not do it. Moreover, he was more inclined to use his own way to solve the problem. What was Yang Yi's way? In the deep darkness of the night, Yang Yi's tyrant gradually revealed its figure from the dim street lights. Then, it silently turned into a secluded alley. Here there's no mistake. Yang Yi turned on the car's light and looked at the map. When Murphy picked up she gave him her home address. Although there was no mobile phone map in this world, but who was Yang Yi? Did he need GPS to find the place? Putting away the map, Yang Yi unzipped his jacket, revealing the black tights inside. After putting away the things, he picked up a small satchel, turned off the light, opened the car door and walked out. Murphy lived in a high-end neighborhood with tight security. Naturally, there was also electronic access control. The security was easy to deal with. Yang Yi flipped over the wall at the end of the alley like a hawk. With his skill, the broken glass could not even touch his hair. However, the electronic access control was a bit troublesome. He did not have that much time and did not want to create more trouble and make the situation worse. So he let go of the confused security guards and climbed up from the sewer pipe, and then went into the safety passage on the 4th floor. Murphy actually lived on the 30th floor. In order to avoid the surveillance camera in the elevator, Yang Yi walked up the stairs to the 30th floor from the safety passage. Luckily, Yang Yi's physical strength was different from ordinary people's, so he was able to stay calm and not be out of breath. When he arrived, there was only one house on this floor, so privacy was guaranteed and it was easy to find. Yang Yi moved the surveillance camera away. The next step was to unlock the door. Murphy's door lock was not ordinary, but Yang Yi was relieved that at least it was not an electronic lock. If it were a fingerprint or password lock, Yang Yi would need professional tools to crack it. At this time, where would he find professional tools? But as long as it was a lock that could be opened with a key, Yang Yi had a way. He took out a few iron wires from his satchel and poked at the door lock for a while. With a soft click, the door lock was opened. After putting away the iron wires, Yang Yi gently opened the door and tiptoed in. This was Murphy's house. Yang Yi saw Murphy's old boots in the shoe cabinet at the entrance, and his heart calmed down. If Murphy had given him the wrong address, he would have been caught in the dark. However, there was one more person that he had to deal with, and that was Murphy's housekeeper. Obviously, she should be sleeping in the housekeeper's room, but Yang Yi could not be careless. He sneaked into the housekeeper's room. The door was not closed, so he walked in and gently tapped the housekeeper's sleep acupuncture point. This way, he could ensure that she could sleep peacefully until the next morning. Chapter 62. After coming out of the housekeeper's room, Yang Yi finally had the time to look around Murphy's house. There was only one word to describe it: rich. Although it was only 100 square meters, Murphy's house was located in the coastal area, where every inch of land was worth its weight in gold. Moreover, the decoration was also very luxurious. Not to mention the furniture, the walls and floor were decorated with top-grade ceramic tiles, Persian carpets, and special wooden lamps. For Murphy even removed the ceramic tiles in every corner of the house and replaced them with golden soft covers, which were similar to those found in clubs, but the materials used were more delicate. Similarly, all the furniture in the house didn't have sharp right angles. Even if there were, they were polished and wrapped with matching soft cushions. It could be said that there was no blind spot for Shishi. From these details, Yang Yi seemed to feel Murphy's deep concern for her daughter. It was a love without any impurities. Yang Yi found Shishi's room, and this feeling was even clearer. The little girl's room was simply made into a fantasy castle by Murphy. The wallpaper on all four sides, the cartoon-shaped cabinets, and the corners full of toys and dolls. This was probably the fairy tale world, that every child dreamed of, right? Shishi was wearing cartoon pajamas and sleeping sweetly on the bed. Young-yi sat down beside his daughter and saw the smile on her face. He didn't know if she was so happy because she saw her father in her dream. However, when he was ready to take Shishi away, Young-yi was a little hesitant. If Murphy heard the housekeeper say that her daughter was missing tomorrow, what kind of blow would it be? Although Young-yi was very unhappy with Murphy's unpredictable mood, he didn't deny Murphy's love for Shishi. Obviously, she had sacrificed a lot more than Young-yi. However, would such love be good without companionship? Moreover, Young-yi had promised Shishi that she would see her father when she woke up tomorrow. Young-yi's gaze became resolute. He gently lifted Shishi up. The little fellow, who was sleeping soundly, wrinkled her little nose, but still curled up in her father's chest and fell into a deep sleep. Young-yi first used Shishi's small quilt to wrap her up. Then, he took out a nylon strap from his small satchel and fastened Shishi to his chest. Before leaving, Young-yi wrote a note. "I'm Shishi's father. Tell Murphy that I've brought Shishi back. Don't panic." He pasted the note on the door. In this way, when the nanny woke up tomorrow and found that Shishi was gone, she would see the note. After doing this, Young-yi went back along the way. Even though he was holding Shishi in his arms, he was able to get back to the car smoothly with his ability to leap over roofs and vault over walls. The next day, a ray of sunlight shone into the bedroom and made the big bed warm. The little beauty, who was sleeping on the bed, frowned. Her long eyelashes trembled, but she didn't wake up so soon. She just turned over and faced the sun with her little butt. However, before long, as if a thought was calling in her heart, Shishi turned around and slowly opened her hazy eyes. However, at this time, Young-yi was preparing breakfast for Shishi in the kitchen. He didn't know that Shishi would get up so early. "Papa!" The little girl, who was wearing a nightgown and had fluffy hair, opened the bedroom door and walked out while rubbing her eyes. Young-yi heard the noise in the kitchen. He stuck his head out and said with a smile, "Good morning, Shishi." Shishi hadn't been so confused yet. She looked at her father in a daze. After a long time, she remembered the current situation. The little girl, who came back to her senses, suddenly became excited. She ran barefoot to her father and said, "Papa, I missed you so much." Young-yi was worried that Shishi, who didn't wear slippers, would fall. He quickly threw down the spatula, strode forward, and picked up Shishi. "Papa!" After being picked up by her father, Shishi hugged her father's neck and refused to let go. "I missed you so much." "Papa missed you too." Young-yi rubbed his daughter's little head lovingly. He first carried her back to turn off the gas stove. Young-yi washed his daughter's face and combed her hair. Shishi finally came out of her confused state. She asked curiously, "Papa, did the dwarfs really send Shishi to Papa?" "Yes." After Papa received a call from Shishi, he said to the dwarfs, "Kind and lovely dwarfs, can you send Shishi to my house? She misses Papa." Then, in the middle of the night, the dwarfs sent you here. Young-yi smiled and made up a story according to Shishi's imagination. But why didn't Papa wake Shishi up? Shishi has never seen a dwarf. Shishi pouted and said, "That's because the dwarfs are very shy. They didn't want to be seen by others, so they left after sending Shishi here." Young-yi tried to lie. "If they saw us, the dwarfs wouldn't help us next time." Shishi hurriedly waved her hand and said, "Then Shishi shouldn't see us. Next time, Shishi will need the dwarfs' help." When Shishi was happily having breakfast with her father, Murphy's call came as scheduled. Young-yi hesitated for a moment, but still pressed the answer button in front of Shishi. "Young-yi, tell me quickly that Shishi is with you." Murphy's voice was trembling with panic, and she even sounded like she was about to cry. She didn't know where her usual calmness had gone. "Don't get excited. I did bring Shishi back." Young-yi sighed in his heart and said calmly, "I don't believe it. Let Shishi talk to me." Murphy was almost choked with sobs. Young-yi had to hand the phone to Shishi. After the little girl took the phone and heard her mom's voice, she said happily, "Mom, I'm having breakfast with Papa. It's the dwarf who sent Cece to Papa. Shishi is so happy. Mom, what's wrong with you? Don't worry about Shishi. Papa is here." After a while, the phone returned to Yang Yi's hand. Murphy gnashed her teeth and said, "Yang Yi, what kind of bastard things have you done?" This time Murphy really couldn't bear it. She was already furious. Yang Yi avoided Shishi, took the phone, went to the balcony and said calmly, "Shishi called me and said she missed me. You know what you're doing is illegal. Do you know?" Murphy was a little hysterical. "Why don't you let me take care of Shishi when you're on a business trip? Why do you leave her at home with a stranger?" Yang Yi asked. Because. Murphy couldn't go on. Her self-esteem didn't allow her to make a scene with a jealous woman. "Anyway, Shishi can't be with you. Am I not good enough for Shishi?" Yang Yi asked. "Why do you care so much about Shishi being with me?" Murphy didn't want to go on. When she thought of Yang Yi being with another woman, her heart was full of sadness. "I still have something to do. Tomorrow, no, I'll come back right away." With that, Murphy hung up the phone. Yang Yi was left standing there in confusion. It seemed that the storm had subsided for the time being. Chapter 63. Murphy's situation wasn't very good. Yesterday, when her new album was released, she participated in the recording of a music chart program at Shanghai TV station and a live broadcast recording at Shanghai radio station. She was busy until late at night. However, sometimes hard work doesn't bring the rewards you want. For example, album sales. Early in the morning, Murphy, who didn't sleep for many hours, woke up. Her lips were pale as she couldn't wait to ask Mo Shawan, who was holding the phone, "Is there data? How much?" Mo Shawan hesitated for a moment, but still told Murphy the situation, 26,000. This was the latest data obtained by the company through the Copyright Association. Generally, this data would be delayed for a few hours before it would be published on the Copyright Association's website. 26,000. Murphy was stunned, and her cold eyes also showed a sad look. The first day sales exceeded 10,000. If it was in Yang Yi's previous life, this sales volume would be enough to write a special book, and even reaching the standard of a platinum album by the end of the sales period could be expected. But it has to be known that copyright protection in this world is the best, and people's consciousness of supporting authentic records is also unprecedentedly strong. So in this world, the standard of a platinum album in the Mandarin region isn't 1 million, nor is it 10 million, but a jaw-dropping 20 million. But even so, there are still 1 or 2 platinum albums emerging in the country every year, which shows how popular the record market is. However, now it seems that this honor has nothing to do with Murphy. The first day sales were only more than 20,000, and it wasn't the first time Murphy released an album. She knew that this time, she was afraid that she would encounter a Waterloo. Sister Ling said, "Don't be discouraged, it's just the beginning, we still have a chance." Mo Shawan encouraged her. But Murphy could only smile bitterly. Indeed, it's not like there are no stories of early slumps and later comebacks by word of mouth, but Murphy is different this time. She still knows that the quality of her new album is just passable. The only thing she can play is the emotional card. It could be said that the sales volume on the first day could almost reflect the effect of her emotional card. Most of her hardcore fans who were willing to support her would choose to buy on this day, right? However, misfortunes never came singly. Just as Murphy was feeling down, she received a call from the housekeeper. The housekeeper was worried sick and frantically told her that she was missing. At that time, Murphy felt as if she had been struck by lightning and almost fainted. Fortunately, it was really Yang Yi, that bastard, who took Shishi over. Although Murphy couldn't figure out how Yang Yi did it, it wasn't important. More importantly, Shishi was still safe. However, with her emotions fluctuating so violently, Murphy was no longer in the mood to record the show. She hurriedly instructed Mo Shawan to help her smooth things over and arrange the follow-up matters. Then she asked the driver to drive her to Zhongqing. Wait a minute, my sister, are you crazy? Mo Xiaowan was still desperately holding on to her. Why are you throwing a tantrum at us at this time? Do you know how serious the consequences would be if you stood someone up tonight? Don't tell me you've forgotten about Lu Shifeng. Murphy stopped in her tracks. Lu Shifeng's slander had a great impact on her. How could Murphy not remember? Wasn't the reason why she agreed to the company's arrangement of so many schedules to eliminate the influence of the one-sided public opinion? However, if Murphy gave in, she wouldn't be the same Murphy who chose to leave the entertainment industry for her child. Help me apologize to the television station and the director. See if they can be reconciled until tomorrow, Murphy said in a low voice. Tomorrow? You still have a schedule at Beijing TV station tomorrow. Mo Xiaowan said anxiously. Then think of a way to help me explain. Murphy looked tired. All she could think about now was Shishi. If she didn't see Shishi with her own eyes, she might not be able to feel at ease. The car left, leaving Mo Xiaowan in a mess in the exhaust. She wanted to cry but had no tears. How did I get such a bad sister? The first day sales of Murphy's new album were terrible. Yang Yi had no way of knowing about this situation. However, what he could know was that the new book he released the day before, Drawing Sword, was very popular from the beginning. There was no slow burn. The first chapter was a hearty battle. The protagonist, Li Yunlong, used his farmer-like cunning to wipe out the Yamazaki Brigade, which was defending the position and causing huge casualties to China's troops. However, a big victory was just a high point. What made the readers intoxicated was the process. Not long after the release, Mu Yuqing, who claimed to be a hardcore fan of Yang Yi, couldn't wait to comment on his book. Yang Yi is still Yang Yi, but the protagonist is more interesting. The title was in front and the text was at the back. The website has never announced Yang Da's identity, but one thing is without doubt. Yang Da must be from a rural background and has been a soldier. In his works, we can see the simplicity of China's farmers, such as Su Sanduo in Soldier's Assault. We can also see their unique cunning, such as Li Yunlong in Drawing Sword. Li Yunlong was a regiment commander, but he didn't look like a general. Instead, he looked like the vulgar and uncultured little farmers we usually know. Looking at his conversation with the cook, Old Wang, he glared and said, "Dream on. You can use the knife, but what can I use? Go, go, go. Kitchen knife, spoon. If you can't use it, use the shoulder pole and think of a way yourself." Later, after Li Yunlong won a big victory, he was not complacent. Instead, he was angry that the soldiers beat Captain Yamazaki into a sieve, and that he couldn't duel with the other party. Which son of AB** Tisage killed Yamazaki? Stand up for me. Just like that, an illiterate farmer became our main character. Yet, just like Su Sanduo, it wasn't surprising at all. In fact, I admired his personality. We all know that in the first half of the last century, our country fell into enemy hands, domestic warlords divided, and there were external and internal problems. At this time, it was a group of farmers and students who came from humble backgrounds who stood up and twisted the power of the country into a rope. That was how we defeated the enemy and led our current life. Yang Yi's book is as exquisite as ever, and the story is as fascinating as ever. I'm really curious how this vulgar Li Yunlong will lead his troops to deal with the Japanese invaders in the future, and how he will bring endless trouble to the enemy. The first chapter made me fall in love with this book, but unfortunately there's no more. Yang Yi UB** starred, hurry up and update it. Like Mu Yuqing, there were many fans who could not wait to finish the first chapter of Drawing Sword and express their joy. The newly opened book review section suddenly became very lively. Needless to say, Drawing Sword was on fire. According to the editor Changzi, who could not wait to report the good news, the number of subscriptions on the first day Yang Yi's new book was released exceeded 1 million. The unit price of subscriptions in this world was very low, so don't be too surprised, and daily sales also exceeded 10,000. Although this was not a record-breaking figure, it was still far from breaking records due to the limitations of the subject matter. However, this was still the best military literature column in recent years. What's more, Yang Yi's books had never won by sales. According to Chengxi's statistics, the amount of rewards on the day of release had exceeded 1 million. According to their agreement, Yang Yi could get at least 700,000. However, Yang Yi did not care at all. He was not ecstatic, nor did he celebrate. It was as if this was just a small scene. For now, Yang Yi had the same idea as Murphy. Putting everything else aside, the most important thing was to take care of Xixi. Chapter 64. Murphy had set off early in the morning. It only took her a few hours to get back to Zhongqing. She sent away the nanny van and put on her sunglasses, mask, and hat before taking a taxi to Zhongqing Media University. However, she only appeared outside Yang Yi's coffee shop when it was almost 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There weren't any customers. Murphy stood at the door. She hesitated for a moment and didn't push the door open. Through the glass, she saw Yang Yi playing with Xixi inside. Yang Yi seemed to be juggling. He held a few small balls and tossed them one by one. Then he caught them and tossed them again. The small balls formed a circle in the air. Xixi was so excited that she giggled. Of course, the soundproofing effect of the glass was good. Murphy couldn't hear Xixi's laughter. However, how could Murphy not know how happy she was when she saw the little girl dancing with joy? Will Xixi be happier when she's with her father? A thought suddenly appeared in Murphy's mind. She was originally very aggressive and wanted to denounce Shen Liangchuan, but she suddenly felt depressed. She didn't know why, but she retracted her hand from the door handle and wanted to turn around and leave. Of course, she wasn't giving up on her daughter. However, Murphy understood that she couldn't be too selfish. She couldn't let Xixi be with her father just because of a little jealousy. Moreover, she couldn't accompany her daughter at this time. Although she was a little sad, Murphy still made a choice. However, just as Murphy was about to turn around and leave, Yang Yi seemed to sense something. He looked up and happened to meet Murphy's eyes. Alright, this time Murphy couldn't leave. You rushed back from a Modu. Yang Yi went over personally, opened the door and called Murphy in. He was a little surprised. I told you not to worry. Xixi is with me. She's very safe. Murphy's face was cold. She ignored Yang Yi. Mom. Xixi misses you too. The little girl hugged her mother's leg happily and said happily. She wouldn't think about why her mother would suddenly appear. Anyway, she was so happy to have her mother and father by her side at this time. Seeing her daughter, a smile appeared on Murphy's face. She picked up Xixi and kissed the little girl's smooth little face. Then she complained in a low voice. You came to your papa's side and scared Mom to death. Mom, don't be angry. It was the dwarf who sent Xixi here. Xixi saw Papa after sleeping. Xixi tried to explain. Mom, don't blame the dwarf. And what dwarfs? Mo Fei glared at Yang Yi grumpily. How could she not know? It was definitely Yang Yi's trick. He even tricked Xixi. Yang Yi was a little nervous. He was originally confident, but in front of Murphy, he felt a sense of guilt. It was even deeper than the guilt brought to him by the 2 million yuan. After a while, Xixi twisted in Murphy's arms. She couldn't sit still. Murphy and Yang Yi looked at each other across the bar. No one knew what to say. The atmosphere was very awkward. Yang Yi wiped the table carelessly. Finally, he thought of something. I'll make coffee for you. These days, I finally bought authentic Blue Mountain coffee beans. Murphy put Xixi down and let her play by herself. She opened her red lips and said, I don't drink coffee. Yang Yi had to stop what he was doing. He didn't know what to do. Murphy didn't know why, but she felt a little wronged in her heart. She pursed her lips and said in a weak voice, I'm hungry. She was indeed hungry. She came back in a hurry. She hadn't eaten breakfast or lunch. Yang Yi suddenly understood. He quickly said, Then let's go up. I'll make you something to eat. Hearing this, Xixi ran to the front happily and shouted, I want to eat too. I want to eat too. Young-yi took off the apron and folded it neatly. Then he took the key and walked out. But when he looked back, he saw that Murphy was still sitting there in a daze. "Let's go," Young-yi said softly. He was a little soft-hearted. Murphy curled her lips and stood up bashfully. But she arranged her face and looked indifferent. She followed behind Young-yi and said lightly, "Who knows if your cooking is good or not? I'm a little worried. Maybe it's better to find a restaurant outside." "No, Papa's cooking is delicious." She ran back and touched her little belly to Mom. She said innocently, "She's belly is big now." Murphy's mouth twitched. She was actually amused by the little girl, but she had to maintain her cold attitude in front of Young-yi. So she didn't forgive him. So it took her a lot of effort to hold back her laughter. Young-yi didn't argue with Murphy. He liked to prove it with actions. At this time, Chinese food was obviously not suitable because the cooking speed was too slow. After Young-yi returned to the kitchen, he took out a handful of pasta from the cabinet. Then, he took out the beef tenderloin, tomatoes, green peppers, onions and other vegetables that he wanted to cook tonight from the fridge. It was not difficult to cook the pasta. The process was basically the same. But the difficult part was to control the heat, and the time and quantity of seasonings. But these were not difficult for Young-yi. He was agile. Soon, a large plate of black pepper beef pasta was out of the pot. Young-yi knew that she also wanted to eat, so he gave a small plate to the little girl. In the process of cooking the pasta, Young-yi also made use of every second to peel the apple, cut the cherry tomatoes, peeled the kiwi, bananas and so on, and made a plate of fruit salad. Young-yi took out 3 plates on a tray. Then, he smiled and put the large plate of pasta in front of Murphy and the small plate of pasta in front of Shishi. Forks and chopsticks were prepared for them. "This is yours, this is Shishi's, and the fruit salad. Welcome to taste. Is it really made by him?" Murphy looked at Young-yi's dishes in a daze. For a moment she forgot to move. It was not that Murphy did not like it, but Young-yi did it too well. Not to mention the fragrance, the plate arrangement was very particular. The pasta on the clean white porcelain plate was not spread out. Instead, it was placed in the middle of the plate like a small mountain. Young-yi, on the other hand, had placed a small flower carved and inlaid with apple peel on the edge of the plate in a very showy manner. This was almost comparable to the work of the chefs in the high-end Western restaurants. "Eat quickly. It won't taste good if it gets cold." Young-yi was a little confused and reminded. Course it was delicious. Shishi, who was next to them, was holding a small fork. She was already eating loudly, and her face was covered with some meat sauce. Murphy came back to her senses. She looked deeply at Young-yi with a puzzled look in her eyes. But she still picked up the fork and ate. A goddess was a goddess. Although the first bite was very good, so good that she almost bit her tongue, she still maintained her elegance and slowly tasted it. Chapter 65. The spaghetti was cooked just right. It was neither soft nor hard, but it was chewy. The gravy of the black pepper beef fillet also soaked every noodle. With just one bite, the aroma of the meat overflowed and the taste buds exploded. "Delicious!" These words were shouted out by Shishi. The little girl's table manners were not as good as Mom's, and she was completely unaware that the spaghetti had thrown a piece of meat sauce on her forehead. Murphy was very reserved. Although it was delicious, she still maintained an elegant posture. She just glanced at Young-yi in surprise, then held her hair, lowered her head, and slowly tasted it. Young-yi couldn't help but laugh. He went to get a towel and helped the little girl wipe her face. He also said softly, "Don't worry, no one will snatch it from you. Look at you, you've eaten so much that you look like a big dirty cat. Quick. She couldn't help but twist her little butt. She couldn't wait to continue eating. Murphy looked at the interaction between the father and daughter, and the corners of her mouth couldn't help but curl up slightly. This kind of warm feeling was like a cloud, lingering in her heart. After Murphy finished eating slowly, Yang Yi pushed the fruit salad forward and asked with a smile, "How is it? Not bad, right?" Yang Yi was still very confident in his cooking skills. Mo Fei rolled her eyes at Yang Yi. The eyes of the ice goddess could be said to have melted the ice and melted the snow, turning purple and red. It was extremely charming. But Murphy didn't want to praise him so as to avoid Yang Yi, this guy, being cocky. However, Murphy still couldn't help but ask in her heart, "Where did you learn to cook Western food?" Yang Yi had long known that Murphy would ask this question sooner or later, so he had already prepared an answer. He said calmly, "Haven't I traveled extensively for many years and worked as a security guard and a waiter? I secretly learned it from a chef in a hotel." Murphy didn't have enough life experience, so she didn't know that this reason was actually nonsense. How could cooking be learned by secretly learning? She was naive enough to believe it. At the same time, Mo Fei also felt sympathy for Yang Yi. She inexplicably felt the hardships that Yang Yi had gone through all these years. She almost shed tears. She muttered slightly in a low voice, "Then why didn't you come to me?" "What?" Yang Yi was helping Shishi clean up the mess. The little girl ate so much that the noodles were thrown on the table. "Nothing." In order to hide her emotions, Mo Fei pretended to be unhappy and asked, "Why haven't you cooked for me before?" Speaking of this, Murphy felt wronged. Yang Yi was stunned for a moment. A sense of irritation arose in his heart. This was an emotion that originated from the memories of his predecessor. "You haven't even stayed here for a whole day. No, not even half a day. What chance did I have to cook for you?" In the end, Yang left Yang little Yang Li and little Nor. "I'm very busy." Murphy pursed her lips and didn't know how to respond. In fact, she didn't dislike Yang Yi. And it wasn't that she didn't have time to get along with Yang Yi before, but the previous Yang Yi had a very bad temper. That kind of feeling of three different views. Murphy felt that she would suffocate if she stayed with the previous Yang Yi for a while. Now, for some reason, Yang Yi had changed a lot. Although his temper was still a little bad, he actually did a lot of things that he wouldn't touch before, such as Western food, coffee, and these foreign foods. Yang Yi was very old-fashioned and thought that they were spiritual opium. The current Yang Yi, Murphy felt much more comfortable to get along with. "Since you learned how to cook, why didn't you open your own restaurant?" Murphy didn't want to talk about emotional topics, so she changed the topic. Yang Yi frowned and said, "I don't like to be a chef. I want to cook because I want to live a more exciting life." He glanced at Shi and added, "Moreover, I only want to cook for myself or for the people I care about." Well, that little fatty who shamelessly came up to her didn't count. At most, he would eat Shi's leftovers. Hearing Yang Yi's confession, in Murphy's opinion, Murphy's heart was about to be melted by Yang Yi. But suddenly, she remembered something that she had been brooding about before. "Oh really? You cooked for that Xiao Kai's mom?" Murphy couldn't control the sourness in her heart at this time and blurted it out. Yang Yi was stunned for a moment and he said frankly, "No." "What do you mean no? I didn't cook for her." Yang Yi was telling the truth. "But you've already brought her to your home. You even gave her clothes to wear." Murphy's grievance exploded. She felt that if she didn't say it out, she would die of suffocation. Shi, who was eating fruit at the side, thought that her mother was unhappy because of the clothes. She quickly took her mother's hand and comforted her. "Mom, don't be angry. Xiao Kai's mom returned Papa's clothes." But how could Murphy be angry because of a piece of clothes? She stubbornly looked at Yang Yi, wanting Yang Yi to give her an explanation. But Yang Yi felt that there was nothing to explain and said lightly, "Her feet were dirty and there was no place to wash in the bathroom downstairs, so she came upstairs to use the bathroom." Of course, this explanation was not enough. Murphy turned her head and argued with Yang Yi. Yang Yi had never dealt with this kind of emotional problem, so he didn't know what to do. On the other hand, Shi stepped on the chair, raised her butt, and leaned on the table to eat fruit. She unintentionally muttered, "But Xiao Kai doesn't like to play with Shi, so he doesn't come." Murphy pricked up her ears. This was something that Murphy hadn't heard before. Young-E also nodded and said with a smile, maybe his mother doesn't have time. She has to manage her family's flower shop, and your Xiao Kai has to learn piano. After the day he returned the clothes, he didn't come again. Hearing this, Murphy felt as if a stone had been lifted from her heart, but she still couldn't help but ask. He didn't come again? Well, I also wanted to say that she can have one more good friend, but it's a pity. Young-E shook his head. Murphy pursed her lips and said, you still want to have contact with that woman? It's not her. I just think that if she can have one more playmate, she won't be too lonely. Young-E said, but it doesn't matter. Now there are many teachers' children in the school, and they often play on the lawn in front of the economic management building. Next evening you can consider taking Shi to meet other children. It turned out that they had only met twice. Murphy's mood suddenly brightened. She was so happy that she didn't pay attention to Young-Ye's words. Her appetite was also better, and she fought with Shi to eat the fruit salad. However, there was still a problem. What about the clothes you put on her that day? Murphy pretended to be indifferent and asked. Young-E was puzzled. What do you want to do? I want to wear it too. I rushed back today and I'm wearing these clothes. It's so hot. Murphy said stubbornly. Then I'll get you a new one or I'll take you to buy clothes. Are you sure you want to wear men's clothes? Young-E said with a headache. No, I want to wear it and I want to wear that one. Murphy pouted and said. But I threw it away. Young-E said honestly. Threw it away? Why? Murphy didn't believe him. Because I don't like to wear clothes that others have worn before. Young-E said concisely. Murphy still didn't believe him, but Young-E really said the truth. He was such a clean freak, how could he wear clothes that others have worn before? The day Yan Xiaopei returned the clothes, Young-E turned his head and threw it into the trash can. I'll take you to buy clothes. I don't want to. Then I'll get you a new one. No. I'm not hot anymore, and the clothes I'm wearing now are very comfortable. Humph. Chapter 66. After the misunderstanding was cleared up, Murphy did not mention anything about bringing Shi back. However, she did not stay with Young-E for long. Not long after, Murphy received a call from Sister Ling. Sister Ling was so angry that her voice trembled as she scolded Murphy. Do you think you can squander your talent just because you have talent? Do you think you can come and go as you please in this entertainment industry? Look at your current results. Wake up. You're no longer the queen of music from 4 or 5 years ago. If you don't work hard, you'll really be suppressed by those newcomers. You'll never be able to make a comeback. Do you know who you've offended by quitting this program? Just Lu Shifeng alone can make you so miserable. What's more, this time it's Shanghai TV station. After offending Shanghai TV station, do you still want to stay in the entertainment industry in the future? I don't care what happened to you, Murphy. I don't care where you are now. Hurry up and go back to record the program. I've already told Mo Xiaowan not to tell the TV station. Hurry up and go back now. Otherwise, Murphy, don't come to see me. Sister Ling was really angry this time. Murphy was scolded to the point that she did not have a chance to explain. Her mood, which had just cleared up, was now clouded over again. Young-E heard the commotion and roughly understood the situation. He frowned and asked, You left your job and came back? Murphy nodded her head in grievance and did not say a word. Young-E didn't really care if he worked or not. It was just like opening a shop. He could choose to keep it open all day, or he could close the door at will and accompany his daughter or go out for a stroll. However, this job seemed to be very important to Murphy. After Young-E learned to think for others, he understood this point. Murphy cared so much about her records. If she lost her job, there might be a big problem. Does it affect you a lot? Young-E asked. Murphy nodded silently. Let's go back now. Young-E said. Kishi, don't worry. I'll take good care of her for you. How can I make it back in time? The show starts recording at 8 o'clock, And it's almost 4 o'clock now. How can I make it back to Shanghai? Murphy said. I still have to find my driver. I don't know how long that will take. Of course, the fastest way was to take a plane. However, when taking a plane, one still had to consider the flight schedule. The time spent in the middle was not necessarily less than driving. After all, Magic City and River Town were near each other. Yang Yi stood up with a bang. He picked up the key and said, There are still 4 hours left. It was more than enough. Come, I'll drive you to Shanghai. I want to go too. She wants to go too. The little girl was playing with her toys, and her ears were like automatic alarms. When she heard the keywords, she jumped up happily and ran over. Of course, she is going too. Yang Yi smiled and rubbed the little girl's head. Daddy doesn't dare to leave you alone at home. We can't make it back in time. Murphy was very doubtful. However, Yang Yi took her hand, pulled her downstairs and stuffed her into the car. Although the process was very short, Murphy's ears were red. This seemed to be the first time they held hands, right? This time Yang Yi placed Shi and Murphy in the back seat. For this arrangement, he also removed the safety seat and reinstalled it in the back. Then, he firmly fastened Shi with the seat belt. I want to sit in the front and enjoy the scenery, the little girl said with a pout. However, Yang Yi did not pay attention to her. After he finished all this, he did not forget to remind Murphy. Fasten the seat belt. The back seat also needs to be fastened. Murphy did not understand, but she still obeyed. Soon Murphy understood why Yang Yi said so. This guy was already very familiar with the roads in Zhongqing. After a few turns, he directly went on the Ring Highway. He was ready to bypass the bustling city area and take the Zhonghu Expressway to Shanghai. After getting on the highway, Yang Yi began to speed up. 100-120. The speed was close to the limit of the highway. If it were not for Shi and Murphy sitting in the back seat, for safety reasons and out of consideration for their acceptance, Yang Yi could have directly sped up to 200 kilometers per hour. Slow down, slow down. Murphy was a little nervous, especially when she saw Yang Yi overtaking without slowing down. She was so nervous that her hands were sweating. Ha! It's so fun. However, Shi showed a different reaction. The little girl waved her little hands and was excited by the feeling of being driven at lightning speed. Close your eyes and sleep. There's a quilt behind you, Yang Yi said without turning his head. Rest your mind. You still have to record the show tonight. So fierce, Murphy muttered in her heart. She wrinkled her nose and made a face at Yang Yi's back. Then, she obediently hugged the quilt and went to sleep. She was really tired. She did not sleep for many hours yesterday. When she got up early in the morning, she suffered a blow from the Waterloo sales. Then, she was worried about Shi's sudden disappearance. Later, on the way back to Zhongqing, she was not in the mood to close her eyes and rest. Her mind was full of all kinds of ties with Yang Yi. Fortunately, she got the answer she wanted. Then, it felt so good to be cared for like this. In this kind of sweetness that she had never felt before, Murphy gradually fell asleep. Actually, she did not sleep well in the car. Yang Yi's tyrant was good in everything, but the shock absorption was a little bad. She did not know if it was because the military car did not consider shock absorption at all in the past. Murphy was in a daze as she swayed, but she could still hear the conversation between Yang Yi and Shi clearly. Wow, Papa, look there are so many boats. Because we're crossing the river. Papa, those cars can't catch up with us. I'm so happy. Then Papa is driving so fast. Are you afraid? I'm not afraid. Shi is not a child anymore. Haha, who told you that you're not a child? Mom said it. Mom said that Shi has grown up. She has to be good and not disturb Papa. Okay, don't listen to your mother's nonsense. In the future, when you're not at Papa's house, call me if you miss me, okay? Okay. Papa, can you open the window? Why? Because the window is covered, I can't see clearly. Not now. Why? Because your mother is sleeping. Shishi, you have to be quiet. Don't disturb your mother. It's very hard on her. Okay, shoo. Unknowingly the car stopped. Murphy, we're here. Yang-yi turned his head and shook Murphy awake. Murphy woke up in a daze and saw the Shanghai TV station not far away. She murmured, "Ah, we're here so soon. What time is it?" "It's still early. Fortunately we didn't disappoint you. We're almost an hour early." Yang-yi smiled slightly. Along the way Yang-yi drove like a speeding car. In 3 hours, he drove nearly 300 kilometers and overtook all the cars in Shanghai. He was lucky that no traffic police stopped him. Murphy didn't rush to get out of the car. She called Mo Xiaowan first. "Sister, you're back." When Mo Xiaowan saw Murphy, she almost cried with joy. However, when she saw Yang-yi in the car, she was shocked and looked at Yang-yi and Murphy with a strange expression. "Do you want me to wait for you?" Yang-yi ignored her and said to Murphy. Murphy gently shook her head and said in an unusually soft voice, "No, you can go back first, or take Shishi to play in Shanghai for a day or two. I'm in a hurry. After recording the show, I have to catch a plane to Beijing." Mo Xiaowan nodded and added, "Yes, I've already booked the plane tickets." "Okay, then I'll take Shishi back first after dinner. It's still early." Yang-yi didn't mind. "Hee, we're going for a ride again." She was addicted to sitting in the car and shouted happily. "Well," Murphy said unhappily, "you're not in a hurry. You're not allowed to drive so fast. Safety first." Mo Xiaowan looked at their faces with a strange expression. A bunch of gossip was brewing in her heart. What happened to them today? Why did they suddenly get better? No, she had to ask them clearly later. Chapter 67. Before they knew it, Drawing Sword had been updated for a week. Although Yang-yi updated once a day, the speed was much slower than the previous Soldier's Assault, which caused the readers to complain wildly. Even so, they continued to complain while reading in a daze. However, after the 7th chapter was released yesterday, Yang-yi aroused public anger. F***ck. Did he really write sister-in-law Shichin to death? Great author, do you have a conscience? The first 7 chapters of the novel killed the female lead. It's over. A good book turned into poisonous grass, the extremely poisonous kind. Abandon the book. F***ck, I'm so angry. A good female lead was killed by a cannon. Can't you save her? In fact, these were really the curses of true fans who expected better from Yang-yi. At present, Yang-yi had gathered the power of fans and many paid posters dared not come forward. There were also emotional people who said, "Although I had a hunch after seeing Xiuqin get caught, I can't believe that you, the author, would do such a thing. Took me a whole day to get this chapter out. Even a 1.8-meter-tall man like me is crying. It's so uncomfortable. Didn't the monk kneel down and beg you to give him 10 minutes? If he rushed in with his men, he might have been able to save her. Bastard, why didn't you give Xiuqin a chance to live?" Li Yunlong did the right thing. As a soldier, he can't let go of the Japanese special forces because of his love. He can't forget to avenge his brothers who died on the mountain because of his love. That's why he ordered the cannon to fire. I respect him as a man and a qualified general. Finally, someone stood up and said something fair for Yang-yi. Li Yunlong sat down weakly. His mind went blank and he felt weak all over. This sentence made me cry. Since she's the woman you love so much, why can't you save her? Li Yunlong, you're a coward. It had to be said that this chapter was indeed poisonous. More than 90% of the readers found it hard to accept this fact. Especially the original readers of the Chinese website. These web novel readers scolded Yang-yi even more fiercely. Even the hardcore fan Mu Yuqing couldn't help but ridicule Yang-yi. "You bastard, are all the female protagonists in your works worthless? Soldier doesn't have a female lead, and Drawing Sword's female lead has only appeared for a few chapters. They've just gotten married, and you're already letting her get a bento. After all, everyone was used to the plot of web novels. No matter how the main character started, whether it was Zhao Riqian or an ordinary mortal, he could become an omnipotent Superman in the end. Regardless of whether there was one, two, or many female leads, the male lead would be able to take care of them all and then start a huge harem. If someone dared to write that the male lead was incompetent and caused the female lead to suffer even the slightest bit of harm, the male chauvinistic readers would scold that person to death. However, Yang Yi did just that. Not only did he hurt the female lead, but he also made the male lead ruthlessly blast his own woman and the Japanese to death with a cannon. Was he not courting death? Was he not trying to poison his own readers? Was he not trying to drive his readers away? The editors of the Iron Army website, who had been paying close attention to Drawing Sword's developments, were delighted to see this scene. After all, the release of Drawing Sword had indeed caused a great crisis for them. Hu Da's move was ingenious, and it happened to be right at their throats. It was not some underhanded conspiracy. He was clearly trying to pit Yang Yi's book against the Iron Army website. He was blatantly attracting the readers of the Iron Army website, and the Iron Army website could do nothing about it. Now, the old readers of the Iron Army website were in such a situation. They chose to read Yang Yi's book at Chua, and then spent money to reward him. However, they would continue to read at the Iron Army website. The only difference was that their consumption had been greatly reduced. This could be seen from the back-end data. Although the Iron Army website believed in its own foundation and appeal, and believed that the readers would not abandon the Iron Army website, the income that originally belonged to them was divided up by Chiyue. No one would be willing to accept that. But what could they do about it? The editors of the Iron Army website had thought of poaching Yang Yi. During the serialization of Soldier's Assault, a large number of Iron Army readers left messages asking them to poach Yang Yi. They had seriously considered this issue. Poaching Yang Yi was obviously beneficial, but Chiyue had done a good job of keeping it a secret, at least from their point of view. The author's information was not leaked at all, and the author himself did not interact with the book fans in the book review section. Actually, if Chiyue knew about this, they would definitely cry foul. After they signed a long-term contract with Yang Yi, not only did they not intend to hide it, they even wanted to publicize it and make Yang Yi a new great author. However, Yang Yi refused. Not only did he not want them to expose his personal information, but he was also not interested in participating in a written interview on the website. This greatly disappointed the staff of the publicity department of Chiyue, and the readers kept calling for him, but they did not get a response. Of course, there was another way, and that was to get Yang Yi's contact information from the Copyright Association, but this would undoubtedly require a lot of favors. The management staff of the website did not have the ability to do so, unless they begged the Army Journal behind it. However, the bosses of the Iron Army website felt that it was making a mountain out of a molehill, so they gave up on this idea. But how were they going to poach him? Waving Ho Sigu was at a loss. They could only watch as Drawing Sword's results exploded, but there was nothing they could do, of course. Now that Drawing Sword had dug a hole for itself, the editorial department of the Iron Army website was cheering and celebrating with smiles on their faces. However, it seemed that this celebration came too early. After the 8th and 9th chapters were released one after another, the editors of the Iron Army website were surprised to find that the readers who were originally clamoring to abandon the book did not abandon the book. Instead, they were cursing and subscribing to the new chapters. Of course, the new 2 chapters caused a great deal of controversy. Yang Yi, that guy, wrote the death of the monk after the death of the heroine. Although the monk was only a supporting character and was only Li Yunlong's bodyguard, his powerful martial arts and righteous character had earned him a lot of fans. But how could such a character of flesh and blood die in vain? Moreover, he did not die at the hands of the ferocious Japanese, but at the hands of bandits, Chinese. The hearts of the readers were bleeding. They did not blame Li Yunlong. Li Yunlong had done well enough. Not only did he disregard discipline and lead his men to eliminate the bandits to avenge the monk, but he also committed the highly controversial killing of prisoners. The readers still loved Li Yunlong to the core, But they also hated young Yi to the core. How could he write the monk's death? Chapter 68. Although the book review section was filled with criticism, what made the editors of Iron Military calm uncomfortable was that the results of Drawing Sword were increasing instead of decreasing. The more it was criticized, the more popular its sales were. "Boss, did Chi-Yu do something to it?" a new editor said indignantly. A group of people said they were going to abandon the book, so why are there still so many people subscribing? This doesn't make sense. The deputy editor of Iron Military, Ling Yun Juejin, was indeed a balding middle-aged man. He pushed his gold-rimmed glasses up and did not say a word. However, the chief editor next to him was already speaking up for him. "Fishball, what nonsense are you talking about? How can Chi-Yu tamper with this kind of big data? Don't tell me they're directly giving money to fill the number of subscriptions." Of course that was impossible. The fiercer the criticism, the more you can see the reader's fondness for Drawing Sword. Ling Yun Juejin sighed and said, "It's just like those tragic dramas. The more people cry, the more the market." He took the mouse and clicked on the reward section. He pointed to the projection and said to his subordinates, "Look, he wrote the supporting characters to death, but there are still many people who are willing to support him. They're even willing to spend a lot of money to get him to revise the previous chapters." The most extravagant was the Golden Alliance of Drawing Sword. A reader with the ID military number urges me to report, spent a huge reward of 50 million book coins, equivalent to 500,000 yuan, just to leave a message in red. There's still 50 million left. Young Yi, if you change Xiuqin and the monk back, it's yours. If you don't change it, I'll send 100 teddy bears to your house one day. P.S. The joke about sending teddy bears came from the book review section. A book friend said that if Little Frost gets this book, he'll send Tai Ri Tian to Little Frost. Doraemon is scared. The editors of Iron Military were no strangers to this idea. They knew that this person's true identity was a real estate owner who used to be a soldier. After retiring, he started from scratch and was a big boss who was worth hundreds of millions. In the past, he spent no less than 5 million on Iron Military. He was a big fish that even Iron Military had to take care of carefully. However, now that he had gone to another platform and was still tipping the authors of the other platform, the editors of the Iron Army Network were heartbroken. "I think it's better if we poach Yang Yi over at all costs." The meeting room was silent for a while. Then one of the chief editors said, "What kind of conditions did Chi-Yu offer him? We'll give him something better and give him a signing fee." "But the problem is we don't even know where they are. How are we going to poach them?" another chief editor retorted. "If we could, we would have done so long ago. Ling Yun, why don't we discuss this with the military's literature department?" "That's right. With the help of the Army's literature and arts department, wouldn't everything be fine by now?" Ling Yun frowned as he listened to the commotion in the conference room. He laughed bitterly in his heart. Too naive. Was it so easy to order those people in the army? Moreover, the relationship between the Iron Military and the Army's literature and arts department had been strained recently. Due to the decline of traditional media, the Army's literature and arts department had been declining year by year. On the other hand, the Iron Military had shown great potential for growth. This made Ling Yun a little unhappy. Every time the leaders of both sides met for a meeting, there would be a smell of gunpowder. "Ahem, I think we don't have to go through the Army's literature and arts department." A weak voice entered Ling Yun's ears. Ling Yun's eyes lit up. He pointed at the guy and said, "Fishball, what good idea do you have? Hurry up and tell me." That's right, it was the brash new editor. When he saw that the deputy chief editor had called him out, he mustered up his courage and stood up. He said loudly, "We can ask a good publisher to talk to Chi-Yu about the physical publication of Soldier's Assault. For such an important matter, You would definitely give us the author's information, right? As long as we can get in touch with the author, our chance will come. That's right. Ling Yun patted his bald head and laughed. Fish ball, that's a good idea. Very good, very good. Let's do it this way. You go and make the arrangements. Yang Yi had no idea what the editors of the Iron Military.com were up to. Yang Yi had been informed by the editor, Chang Zi, about his new book, but he did not look at the reviews and comments section. He also had no intention of changing the manuscript. Yes, a reward of $500,000 was not enough to change the plot of the original novel. Why? Yang Yi's reward for a mission in his previous life was a few $1,000,000. How could a mere $500,000 be enough to make him go away? Furthermore, no amount of money would work. Yang Yi was a man of principles. But what was he doing? Today Yang Yi did not open his shop. Instead he brought Xi to the bank. Of course, Yang Yi did not have the attributes of Detective Conan. He was just there to withdraw money. The bank was peaceful. There were no bank robberies or kidnappings. As they had made an appointment beforehand, the VIP manager brought Yang Yi and Xi to a separate VIP room. She was very considerate and gave Xi a plate of candies and biscuits. Thank you, Auntie. Xi said sweetly as she snuggled into her father's arms. You have to call me sister. Calling me Auntie is too old. The VIP manager, who was wearing a suit and a skirt, was actually only a few years younger than Yang Yi. However, it was a woman's nature to dislike being called Auntie. Back to the topic, the VIP manager confirmed with Yang Yi. Mr. Yang Yi, are you going to withdraw $1 million in cash? That's right. Yang Yi nodded. But it's not convenient to carry $1 million in cash around. It's also not safe. Sure enough, Tianxia Bank was just as evil. She tried her best to persuade him to stay. Why don't you deposit your money in the bank? We have a very convenient wealth management product here. Your money can be withdrawn as soon as you deposit it. The interest rate is higher than a current account and the income is calculated daily. Yang Yi was very firm. He waited for the VIP manager to catch her breath and expressed his attitude. No, I want to withdraw cash. The VIP manager tried her best, but Yang Yi still wanted to withdraw the money. In the end, she could only ask the security guard to send the money up. Yang Yi prepared his own luggage to withdraw the money. Seeing Yang Yi put the stacks of money into the bag, the VIP manager's heart was bleeding. She could not help but say, Mr. Yang, it's not safe to carry so much money on the road. Yang Yi smiled faintly. He looked at her calmly and said, Is it? Thank you for your reminder. Let's go, Xi. The little girl reluctantly looked at the untouched candy on the plate, but she still obediently jumped down from the chair and ran over to her father's empty left hand. Goodbye, Auntie, Xi said obediently. The VIP manager's mouth twitched when she heard that. She could only force a smile. Just like how he didn't care when he bought a car with $2 million. Yang Yi carried the bag of money and calmly walked out with Xi. It was as if they were a father and daughter traveling with their luggage. No one would look at him. Yang Yi was still looking forward to it, but there were no blind robbers rushing out. So he threw the money into the back seat of Tyrannical Wolf and left with Xi. Chapter 69. Modified version. When he got home, Yang Yi waited for Xi to go to bed before he took the money in the 2 luggage bags to the study. The money that Yang Yi had withdrawn from the bank that day was in the gray luggage bag. It was his income from the book Soldier's Assault last month. The other dark green duffel bag contained the reward he received for reporting the corrupt official. Of course, it was no longer $2 million. Yang Yi had bought the car, renovated the coffee shop, and other expenses. He had spent more than $800,000, close to $900,000. That was quite a lot. Luckily, Yang Yi easily got it back. He opened the dark green luggage bag and took out the scattered money. Then, he took out the money from the gray luggage bag and placed it neatly into the dark green luggage bag. He counted until the money in the dark green luggage bag reached 2 million. There was still 122,700 left in the gray luggage bag. Yang Yi took it out and placed it neatly in the drawer in his study for his daily use. Yang Yi liked to keep a large amount of cash at home. On one hand, it was because the concept of mobile payment didn't exist in this world. On the other hand, it was because of his habit from his previous life. He could take the money and run away any time. Even though he didn't need to do that now, Yang Yi still lacked a sense of security. Speaking of which, after Yang Yi tidied up the dark green luggage bag, he finally let out a sigh of relief. Back then, when he took the 2 million from the corrupt official Luo Jinrong's vault, Yang Yi thought that he could take it with a clear conscience, just like in his previous life, and leave with his reward. However, under Mo Fei's interrogation, Yang Yi found that although he had deceived her by making up a lie, there was a heavy shackle on his heart. It turned out that there were so many restrictions in the world of ordinary people. Yang Yi gradually distinguished the conflict between his previous life and his current life. Take the reward, for example. Yang Yi might have thought of it as a reward for his efforts, but to ordinary people, the money was ill-gotten wealth. How could the corrupt officials take the wealth of the people and use it for themselves? Carrying out justice on behalf of the heavens. And you still want to steal while you're at it? Then what right do you have to say that you're walking on the path of justice? If he had even deceived his own daughter's mother, how could he use this money with a clear conscience? Since he had decided to completely integrate into the world of ordinary people, Yang Yi was also slowly changing his mindset. Although it was impossible for Murphy to discover the existence of the money, Yang Yi felt that if he didn't handle it properly, there would always be a demon in his heart. How could this be? Yang Yi wanted to live a carefree life. Therefore, after he received the copyright income last month, Yang Yi took back the money that really belonged to him and made up for the hole that he originally took out. The only thing left was how to deal with the 2 million. Fortunately, Yang Yi already had a plan. After 2 weeks of hitting the charts with her new song, Murphy could finally come back and rest for a few days. Although these few days weren't completely a rest, she still had to participate in some programs in Zhongqing. Murphy still wanted Yang Yi to send Shishi home. She missed her daughter. When Yang Yi saw Murphy, she still looked cold, but in front of Yang Yi, she didn't hide it. Her eyes were still full of fatigue and loneliness. "I saw it in the newspaper," Yang Yi hesitated and said. "The situation of your new album isn't very good." Murphy was hugging Shishi. The mother and daughter were interacting intimately. When she heard Yang Yi's words, Murphy pursed her lips and said stiffly, "Let's not talk about this." Although her relationship with Yang Yi had eased, Murphy's understanding of Yang Yi was still in the past. She felt that Yang Yi was still very dissatisfied with her work in the entertainment industry. Therefore, if she could avoid talking about this with Yang Yi, she didn't want to talk about it. What's more, Murphy had been beaten black and blue by the poor sales of her album in the past 2 weeks. Home seemed to be her only safe haven. Why would she involve those troubles? Murphy's tone was still very uncomfortable, but Yang Yi was still not angry. He still felt that Murphy's situation was very bad, but the problem wasn't with Murphy herself. It was just that the songs in her new album were too bad. If he were to write songs for Murphy, with Murphy's ability, it wouldn't be impossible for her to return to the top. What's more, he could sell songs to an unfamiliar singer like Chen Yijie. How could he just stand by and watch Murphy be depressed? She is Shishi's mother. Yang Yi muttered to himself for a moment and said, "I think that I might be able to help you." Murphy was a little unhappy. She interrupted Yang Yi and said irritably, "No need. You stay at home and take care of Shishi. Let me deal with the problems in my career, okay?" Choking for a moment, Yang Yi swallowed back the words of wanting to help her write a song. Seriously. A dog biting Lu Dongbin. She doesn't know how to appreciate kindness. Yang Yi was also a guy with strong self-esteem. He didn't want to shamelessly stick to other people's cold buttocks. Murphy looked at Yang Yi and didn't say anything. She was actually a little flustered in her heart. Of course, Murphy didn't know what she missed out on, but she didn't know why. but she inexplicably cared about Yang Yi's feelings. Would he be angry? Sigh, did I lose my temper again just now? Mo Fei started to blame herself. However, even so, with her cold personality, it was difficult for her to take the initiative to apologize to Yang Yi. Murphy's idea was also very strange. If he wasn't willing to give in on the issue that she insisted on, then she could just compensate him in other areas. The two of them seemed to have parted on bad terms this time. After sending Shi to Murphy's place, Yang Yi could be said to have a few days of vacation. He followed his plan and threw the dark green luggage bag into the car. Then, he took some simple clothes and drove all the way west to a relatively poor western province. You are Zhu Luyan. Yang Yi met with the person he contacted earlier. Zhu Luyan. This was the founder of a non-governmental charity organization. Although he looked dark and thin and dressed like a migrant worker, Yang Yi still knew that this guy's background wasn't small. He was born in a big family in the capital, a rich family. But because Zhu Luyan's relationship was strongly interfered with by his family, he angrily left the capital and left his original pride and status. Of course, Zhu Luyan still hoped to make some achievements to prove himself, so he chose to do charity with his girlfriend. Moreover, he was very creative and established a project called Dream Primary School. Through donations, they were dedicated to building well-equipped schools in poor areas to help those children realize their dreams. Of course, they had only built 3 schools so far. After all, the donations weren't much. Most of the money came from Zhu Luyan selling his luxury car. He wasn't willing to use his family's connections to trick others into donating money. Before this, Yang Yi had done a detailed investigation and even borrowed the dark power of this world. Therefore, he was still very assured about Zhu Luyan's project. It just so happened that his 2 million yuan could be used appropriately, and Yang Yi didn't have to worry too much. After Zhu Luyan and Yang Yi confirmed each other's identity, he carried the dark green luggage bag that Yang Yi gave him. He was so excited that he trembled a little. He said, "Mr. Yang Yi, your 2 million yuan is really timely. Moreover, we can let 2 more children in poor areas have a place to study." Zhu Luyan's excitement, of course, wasn't because he had never seen so much money before, but because it was the first time he received such a large donation. Moreover, it came at such a timely time, so he didn't need to ask his family for help. He regained the confidence to do a good job in charity. Yang Yi smiled slightly and said, "Mr. Zhu, I have a question, but I don't know if I should ask." "Go ahead. I'm just suggesting a little. The name of your project, Dream Primary School, sounds weird. Would it be better to call it Hope Primary School?" Chapter 70. In the blink of an eye, it was July. Zhu Luyan seemed to have found a like-minded comrade. She took him to visit the schools he had built before and asked him to give his opinion. Yang Yi came back a little late. There was no problem with Murphy. They parted on bad terms that day, but it didn't affect their conversation every night. The content of this call was a little strange. The two of them didn't talk about their relationship, nor did they talk about love. They just talked about CC day after day. If she was with Yang Yi, Murphy would ask Yang Yi to report the interesting things about her daughter that day. If she went back to live with her mother, Murphy would also tell Yang Yi about she. This kind of talk on the phone was really magical, but what was more magical was that Yang Yi enjoyed the process. After hanging up the phone, Murphy would secretly feel sweet for a while, as if Yang Yi had said something sweet. Course not. How could a wooden person like Yang Yi say something sweet? When Yang Yi came back, the editor, Chang Zi, was the happiest. "My lord, you are finally back." Chang Zi received Yang Yi's reply on Sense and almost cried with joy. Yang Yi was a little puzzled. "I stopped updating. No, there are still some manuscripts in the draft box. Then my readers fell out again." "Well, there are some." After the new heroine appeared, the readers were a little angry, but the situation is still manageable. This matter started last week. Under the joint counterattack of the two military forces in China and some small warlords, the Japanese invaders were finally defeated. They were even driven out of the country and chased back to their home island. In the end, the Japanese invaders surrendered unconditionally. This history was somewhat similar to Yang Yi's previous life, but it was more about the pride of the Chinese army, and the European and American armies didn't get involved. After the victory, it was bound to be the beginning of the Civil War. In the joint battle, the strength of the small warlords was almost exhausted, and the rest was the confrontation between the two military forces. In fact, history had changed a lot, but it was surprisingly similar. After Yang Yi made some artistic modifications, the trajectory of the story returned to the original plot. Li Yunlong's military force, which was based on workers and farmers, and Chu Yunfei's military force, which was backed by entrepreneurs and bankers, began to fight in the vast land of China. Li Yunlong's name was unknown, but he showed cunning and tenacious fighting power, which gave his opponents a headache. Just like his military force, although it looked very primitive, it was strong enough to make all the people who looked down on it slap themselves in the face. But fate was so strange. Li Yunlong and Chu Yunfei, these two people who appreciated each other but had to be wary of each other, met again. Once, they were both regimental commanders. Because of his temper, Li Yunlong killed prisoners, disobeyed orders, got promoted, got demoted, and stayed in the position of regimental commander. Even though the army he led was already an independent brigade, and during the battle, it was expanded to a division. In the original novel, Li Yunlong was promoted to a division commander, but the title of regimental commander was still deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. Chu Yunfei was much better. He was talented, and he was more tactful than Li Yunlong. Naturally, he had a meteoric rise, and he had already reached the rank of Major General. Of course, they also led a division. The two characters that the readers loved so much were destined to have a battle of life and death. But how could they guess Yang Yi's plan? At the end of the 12th chapter, Chu Yunfei ordered his subordinates to shoot at Li Yunlong, and Li Yunlong also ordered his machine gunners to shoot at Chu Yunfei. At that time, the readers' hearts were broken. Fortunately, in the end, Li Yunlong was pulled back from the edge of death by the hospital. He was wrapped like a dumpling, and he was in a coma for 8 days before he woke up. The overjoyed readers seemed to empathize with Li Yunlong's subordinates. "Listen, if anything happens to our division commander, I'll kill you first, and then the doctor. Do you understand?" There would always be a delicate girl next to a reckless man. This time, when Li Yunlong was injured, a little nurse, Tianyu, appeared next to him. She looked like she came out of a painting. When Zhao Gang, the literary political commissar, saw her, he thought of the poem, "Hibiscus like a face, willow like eyebrows," in the Song of Everlasting Regret. It could be seen how delicate her beauty was. But the readers didn't accept her because she was beautiful. It was amazing. Originally, in the world of online novels, the male version was basically the world of male chauvinists. Most readers couldn't wait for the male protagonist to have all the beautiful women in his pocket. But in this book, there was a call to not welcome Tianyu's character in the book review section. It was almost a one-sided rejection. Perhaps it was because Xiuqin was too deeply rooted in people's hearts. Shouldn't the strong woman who was still stubborn and willing to sacrifice for her man be the perfect match for a man like Li Yunlong? Why did another vixen get into his mind so quickly after his wife died? Of course, the plot in the book actually jumped a long time. The readers saw this development in a few days and didn't realize that in fact, Xiuqin had been gone for many years. In the next few chapters, the attitude of the readers quietly changed. Because of each other, the two characters who seemed to be completely incompatible with each other had a chemical change that made the readers unhappy but couldn't help but laugh. Tianyu, who was originally from a scholarly family, had a chivalrous heart. Not only did she carefully take care of Li Yunlong, but she also had a deep understanding of him. She could also understand Li Yunlong's past. She even tried to argue with her colleagues about the fact that Li Yunlong killed his wife with the Japanese. And Li Yunlong also changed from a rough man to a rough man with a playful heart. He tried his best to recite poems with Tianyu. He was also angry that the hospital changed the nurse for him, so he played petty tricks and asked Tianyu to transfer him back. This kind of disparity gradually made people feel that the two of them were actually quite compatible. Finally, Li Yunlong went to the Tian family's house to propose. Although there were still some readers who were unconvinced, most of them had already accepted the arrangement of the story. No, it seemed that they had gone a little too far. Back to the conversation between Yang Yi and Chang Zi. Yang Yi asked in confusion, "Then what are you in such a hurry for?" Chang Zi quickly said, "There's a problem with the physical publication of Soldier Assault. Didn't your contract say that you have to be involved to talk about the copyright? Now several publishers have come to your door, and there's even someone who wants to sign 2 of your books in one go." Well, he did have some foresight after all. Drawing Sword was not even halfway through its serialization, yet he could already see the potential of Drawing Sword. Of course, Chi Yu wanted to strike while the iron was hot and fight for more benefits, but Yang Yi wasn't there at all. "Understand." Yang Yi pondered for a moment and said, "Ask them to come over to my place to talk. Let's do it next week. I'll basically be in the shop next week." "Okay, I'll arrange it right away. My colleagues from Chi Yu's copyright department will also accompany you." Chang Zi responded quickly. The happy Chang Zi certainly did not see it through the screen. Yang Yi's lips also curled into a slightly deep smile. Chapter 71. Shishi, wake up. It's time for breakfast. Auntie Zhu was the nanny who woke Shishi up this morning. Shishi rubbed her eyes and leaned on Auntie Zhu's shoulder. She hadn't woken up yet. The little girl's voice was also drowsy as she asked, "Where's Mom?" "I want Mom." Mom went to work. But Mom said that she has to stay at home obediently. Auntie Zhu was already used to it and comforted her skillfully. Shishi doesn't want to be obedient. Shishi wants Mom. Shishi mumbled. Of course, Shishi was just venting a little when she woke up. She was already used to her mother not being by her side, so she was very obedient and didn't cry or cause trouble for Auntie Zhu. Auntie Zhu was quite responsible for taking care of Shishi, washing her face and taking care of Shishi's breakfast. However, she couldn't be as meticulous as a real parent. When she was feeding Shishi porridge, she still turned on the TV and focused on it. "I want to eat sandwiches and drink juice." She grabbed her little feet and protested. The little girl was unbridled when Murphy wasn't by her side. Usually, she was focused on cultivating Murphy into a little lady. She wouldn't allow Shishi to play with her feet with her hands. Dad seemed to allow it, but Yang Yi would definitely ask Shishi to wash her hands. "Auntie will buy you sandwiches tomorrow. There's juice in the fridge. Drink it after you finish the porridge." Auntie Zhu stuffed another spoonful of porridge into her mouth. Shishi's mouth was stuffed with porridge. She swallowed it uncomfortably before she had the chance to continue speaking. "No, I want to eat the delicious sandwiches that Dad makes and drink juice made from oranges." "You still have to eat well." Auntie Zhu didn't care. She continued watching the TV and said, "You have to eat well to eat a lot of delicious food." What kind of logic was this? She couldn't understand. When she was at her father's place, sandwiches were rice. Moreover, when they were eating together, her father would make a lot of delicious food. The picky little girl felt that she had no appetite for the food she ate at home. However, before she could throw a tantrum and protest, Aunt Zhu suddenly said, Shishi, look, it's your mother." Shishi's attention was immediately attracted. She widened her eyes and focused on the television because her mother really did appear on the television. Last month, the former pop queen Murphy came back and released her new album, 9 Years of Murphy. However, the current market performance is relatively low. Some experts have analyzed that the reason for Murphy's predicament is that the quality of her works has greatly decreased after her comeback, which is really disappointing. The video shown on TV was a clip of Mo Fei's participation in a music program. However, this news was still connected to the so-called expert and music critic. That person said, "A month ago, I had already expected that the results of Mo Faye's new album would not be much better. Why? First, her new album was too rushed. From the news of her comeback to the announcement of her new album, only a few months have passed. Any outstanding album needs the singer to carefully polish it. If the album is not made with effort, how can it sell well?" Here I have to mention Lee Man. Now, Lee Man's status in the music industry is not lower than Murphy's before she retired. However, Lee Man still spent a long time perfecting her music. I believe that the new album that she promised to release in January next year will definitely sell well. As I said earlier, this is only one of the reasons. There is another reason. It's just that I don't think Mo Faye's character is good. Previously, teacher Lu Shifeng openly criticized her on the show. Later, many musicians in the industry also expressed a lot of opinions. Of course, they didn't make it public. The reason why I know is that I'm familiar with them. Her character is not good, and she has offended many people. Murphy wants to easily return to the peak after her comeback. How is this possible? If she can still become popular, wouldn't it be unfair to other hardworking children, such as Lee Man? This guy said a lot, but he always had a feeling that he was stepping on Murphy and flattering Lee Man. In fact, he received money from Lee Man. Only a small TV station that Aunt Ju liked to watch every day would invite such a person to spout nonsense. Aunt Ju, of course, still stood on Murphy's side. She said angrily, "This person is talking nonsense. When did your mother not work hard? Feel distressed? She is such a good daughter. She practices singing every day and works hard. How can you say that she is not hardworking?" She was actually confused when she heard that person's words. As a child, how could she understand so many words? At most, she felt that this person was not saying anything good. But after listening to Aunt Ju, the little girl said angrily, "My mom is not hardworking. Mom is very powerful." She seemed to equate hardworking with being powerful. Sigh. Aunt Ju sighed. "But your mother is in a bad situation now. The news said that she released a new album, but the results are very bad. Mom won't." She was stunned. She felt a little wronged. She rubbed her eyes and refuted. Aunt Ju didn't pay attention. She was still watching the TV. She casually said, "It is very bad. The album sold very little. Some people said that they don't want it even if they give it to others for free." "That's not it." She's big eyes were full of tears. She choked and said, she couldn't accept the fact that her most admired mom was not good. "Aya, my little ancestor, why are you crying?" Aunt Ju noticed at this moment. She quickly put down the bowl and hugged She. She coaxed, "Do you want to drink juice? Aunt will get it for you now." "Oh." She shook her head and sobbed, "I don't want juice. I want Mom." "Aya, where can you find your mother at this time? Your mother is working hard. Otherwise, how can she have the money to buy she nice clothes?" Aunt Ju said. "Then she doesn't want nice clothes. She wants Mom." The little girl thought for a moment and added, "Papa has money. I'll ask Papa to give Mom money." This seemed like a good idea. Your father's money is your father's money. Why would your mother want your father's money? Aunt Ju's attitude was actually similar to Mo Xiaojuan's. She felt sorry for Murphy and was a little disgusted with Yang Yi. She snorted and said. However, she didn't listen. She felt that she seemed to have found a very good idea. "I'll find a chance to tell Papa and ask him to help Mama." She was happy. She missed her father a little. What Mo Fei didn't know was that her daughter's amazing way of thinking had actually helped her a lot. Of course, this was all in the future. Right now, Murphy had unknowingly been set up by someone to cause trouble. Chapter 72. P.S. Everyone is still wondering if the protagonist will write a song for Murphy and when. Don't worry, he will definitely write it, but it won't be the first album, nor will it be these chapters. After all, Murphy's new album is still on the charts. Even if he starts preparing for the new album, he still needs a buffer. Little Han likes to write different routines from other novels. Even if it's writing songs or the upcoming scandal, the development of the story will definitely be different from what you think. If it's like other novels with all kinds of routines and all kinds of dazzling light, then what's the point? So calm down and watch the development of the story. Anyway, little Han won't write a tragedy. Everything is for a better future. Sister Murphy, please wait a moment. Just as she came out of her recording studio, Murphy was stopped by someone. Looking back, it was a handsome male star. His hair was fixed with a lot of gel, and the fixed hairstyle was stiff and straight, but it also lost its original elegance. Jia, what's the matter? Of course, Murphy recognized this person, although she wasn't very familiar with him. In the past, when Murphy was still the #1 star, Jia was the company's trainee and was unknown. However, Jia had been a newcomer in the company for the past 2 years. His current development was good, and he had already entered the ranks of the C-list male stars. He had also released a good album, and his prospects were considerable. Murphy had a deeper impression of last month's company meeting, when Sister Ling asked Murphy to take care of Jia. However, Murphy wasn't the kind of star who was good at dealing with people. Her connections were shallow, and she was currently in a difficult situation, so when it came to supporting the younger generation, she was powerless. When she saw Jia, Murphy still felt apologetic, and it was rare that she didn't put on a cold look. It's like this, Sister Murphy, you are my senior and have participated in many activities, so you have a lot of experience. Right now, the company is sending me to attend an award ceremony hosted by Southern Media. I would like to ask you about some things that I should pay attention to. Jia's eyes flashed with an inexplicable light as he deliberately got closer. Murphy furrowed her brows slightly. She wasn't used to this kind of intimacy, but because she felt apologetic, she didn't want to appear too distant. So she held back her discomfort and said, "You need a date for the award ceremony." Jia seemed to be listening obediently, but in reality, he was paying attention to the other side from the corner of his eye. When he saw a hand gesture, the corners of his mouth curled up. "Sister Murphy, I know you're busy. Why don't we talk while we walk? I'll help you carry your bag." Jia eagerly extended his hand, seemingly a little flustered, and just happened to place it on Murphy's slender hand. Murphy reflexively retracted her hand with her brows knitted. However, she still held back her anger and did not flare up. "It's fine, Jia." Jia brilliantly retracted his hand. He was also thick-skinned as he chuckled. "I'm sorry, Sister Murphy. I was too eager to show off, so please forgive me for my rudeness." Since the other party had already apologized, how could Murphy still put on airs? She forced a smile that was so fake that even she felt uncomfortable. "It's fine. Where were we?" Murphy really did have something on, so the two of them switched to walking and talking. Murphy wasn't used to Jia's cologne, so she wrinkled her nose and took a few steps forward. But Murphy didn't notice that when she was trying her best to impart her experience to the other party, Jia wasn't listening seriously. He pretended to walk steadily, but his right arm was raised and placed behind Murphy's back. "It's roughly like this. Do you remember it all?" Murphy still said a lot seriously before turning her head to look at Jia. Jia had already pulled his hand back as if nothing had happened. He scratched his head to cover it up and smiled flatteringly. "I remember, Sister Murphy. You're really amazing. Thank you for your help. Why don't I treat you to a meal tonight?" Murphy of course shook her head. She felt uncomfortable being so close to this Jia. She didn't know why, but there was a strong sense of repulsion in her heart. "It's fine. I still have something on tonight," Murphy said coldly. This was Murphy's style of euphemism. Jia smiled brightly. He didn't continue to pester her. Anyway, today's harvest was enough. Murphy actually didn't have anything to do in the evening. She just had to send Shishi to her father's place. Starting tomorrow, she would fly all over the world again. In the last week of the new album promotion period, the company arranged a lot of itineraries for her. Of course, Murphy also missed the delicious food made by Yang-yi. In comparison, Murphy preferred to eat at Yang-yi's place. It was quiet, peaceful and delicious. Who would want to eat with a young man who sprayed cologne? Murphy was very stubborn. She didn't want to pretend to be polite. If someone says goodbye at the terminal station, there will be news of reunion. If at the terminal station, I think you will meet again one day. Yang-yi crossed his hands and sat at his bar with his eyes closed. He quietly listened to the popular old song, The Terminal. It was indeed an old song. It had the charm of the slow-paced songs of the 1970s in his previous life. He needed to close his eyes and enjoy it carefully. It was also played with this kind of surround high-fidelity sound equipment, which always made people feel peaceful. However, a series of ringtones broke the peace. Yang-yi frowned. However, when he saw that it was Murphy's call, he quickly stopped the music and answered the phone. "Papa!" Shishi's crisp voice came out. Yang-yi couldn't help but smile. "Well, Papa is here. Shishi is coming to Papa's place. Papa, are you very happy?" The little girl giggled. She began to take the initiative and asked about her father. "Of course I am happy. And Mama?" Shishi giggled. "Mom said she wants to eat Papa's cooking. She wants to eat with Shishi and Papa." Yang-yi also heard that Murphy seemed to have been exposed. She shouted angrily, "Yang-yi! That's no problem. Papa will prepare delicious food for you." Yang-yi said softly. "Be." Shishi cheered happily. The little girl chatted with her father for a while before Murphy grabbed the phone. She was a little embarrassed and pretended to be indifferent. "Don't listen to Shishi's nonsense. I'll bring her here now. You don't need to pick her up. Xiaowan happens to be free. Please take care of Shishi. I have to go on a business trip tomorrow. Well, as for dinner, if you still have food in the fridge, I can eat some. If it's not convenient, I'll treat you to dinner outside at a hotel." Murphy pretended to be casual and said, "It's a meal for you. We don't owe each other anything." Yang-yi was actually a little unhappy with Murphy's attitude. If it was someone else, he wouldn't be interested. But after all, it was Murphy. Yang-yi didn't care. He also pretended to be casual and said, "Why go to a hotel? Can those chefs cook better than me? Anyway, I'm used to cooking for one more person. Since you're here, I won't waste it." "Ha, let's see who is more casual and who doesn't care more." Murphy gritted her teeth and said snappily, "That's not enough. Xiaowan is also here." Mo Xiaowan was driving. When she heard this, she quickly said, "No, sister. I have something to do later. There's a dinner party. I don't need to go." Of course, she was lying. In fact, she was unwilling. Last time in Shanghai, Mo Xiaowan could see that the relationship between these two guys had eased. Instead of going up and watching the two of them being lovey-dovey and being abused, she might as well go for a ride. Maybe she could meet a handsome guy on campus. You're tuning in to the Whispers of Romance YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.